It's Friday, April 28th, 2023. Shall start as we now always do.
As bitches.
As bitches. Well, shills are bitches. So
yeah.
Our shill segment.
Yep.
Where we say you can go to patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare to support the show. Or you can go to our show homepage where you will find a little square picture of a book with a bookmark, which will take you over to, that was a terrible whistle because I can't whistle, over to Lando's Amazon author page. On that same page, you will see a little PayPal icon that will let you donate through PayPal if you prefer. And every show in the show notes has links to my Linktree, where all the different places that you can buy crap I produce is, instead of me listing it all here. That's it. That's all I had for the opener.
How's the card thing going, by the way? I haven't asked you about that in a bit. I know that you were busy getting them out.
Hold on, I can tell you because I have my little, actually on this computer is where I maintain my spread. Oh no, they're still going. Somebody, this is the irony. Somebody started listening to our show because I put a little business card in with everything, and they actually commented that they enjoyed the show that Sam and I did on Parks and Recreation, I think. So,
which is funny because it's like the most uncommon one for us, isn't it?
It really, yeah. I hope that person does not think that's going how the hell are. Although I actually do think I'm going to start doing more with her on shows that we watch. I think it's a fun idea. It's not going to be as many as we do because we don't watch as much varied stuff, but still. Let's see. I have sold 14 of the Shieldred foil cards. I have sold 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on, my math is terrible. 10 of the non-foils, 3 of the Elos foils, 6 of the non-foils, 3 of the Lagomos foils, and 3 of the Lagomos non-foils. And ironically, somebody has just asked me to do a polyptych, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of 4 cards that form a single image. Would you like to guess what that image is going to be?
Vagina?
The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda.
No.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
It is.
Okay. But you know what? I will say this. It's not really your forte. I do think that the imagery of the Mandalorian and the child is almost better than the Mandalorian itself.
I agree, which is why when I was given... that was the one I picked. Because I was given a selection. The person said you can either do Yoda fighting Count Dooku as like a 3-card image or something. Or Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, whatever. I can't remember the name of the actual creature.
You should totally go Lone Wolf and Cub on that.
No, I'm going Art Deco, what do you call it? Oh, God, what is it called? The Madonna, where he's holding the baby and looking up, and there's a halo around him and a halo around the Baby Yoda, and then it's firing out into all these beams of light. And then in the upper left is the N1 Starfighter, and in the lower right is the Razor Crest.
Have you seen the baby in the IGN 11 suit?
I saw a picture of that. It's adorable.
It's adorable, right?
Yeah, too bad the thing doesn't last for more than, 2 episodes? It gets blown apart.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, because I was going to review it today. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
so
that's
the next thing I'm doing. Yeah,
it is a good image.
It was that, like I said, it was Yoda versus Dooku, something with the Mandalorian, or just like 1 card images of Darth Maul and something else. And I went, I want to try it. It's going to be tricky because I have to line the cards up. That's the hardest part. But
it's kind of honestly, I wonder if you shouldn't rough it out on a piece of paper. And
no! I'm digitally roughing it out, and then I'm going to transfer it using. Oh no, I'm not going to freehand it. No way. Something like this.
You're like, I got to get this right.
Yeah, because I want my precision with the geometry to be correct. Therefore, I'm not going to leave it to chance. I'm going to have this thing. And the person said to me, take as long as you want. So I'm like, okay, if I have the time, I've been slowly building the image. And I've sent it to this person a couple times, said, here's what I'm thinking. And it's come back, yes, that's fine. It's like Art Deco Rocketeer type stuff. I'm like, okay, we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
we're good.
That's nice. That's nice. I like that.
Yes.
But the Mandalorian image is good. In fact,
I like the armor, so I don't dislike the character
symbol,
design.
The symbol with the one bull and like almost like a star.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Or just I really like that symbol. I almost put that on my car at one point because in a weird way it represents like, aggressive parenting in my mind.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's awesome. It's awesome that it's still going and that like there's still an interest and there's still,
Yeah, I just had somebody email me who has a business where he will arrange for people. He sends out large bulk orders to artists just to sign to make it easier. So I'm like, sure, I don't care, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, it's an interesting world you've crossed over into, friends.
They're really nice. The people in Discord, they're really nice people. Everybody's very kind. It's astonishing.
It's great that they're so kind and nice.
It really, because like there was one that I messed up. And I was only supposed to sign the card, but I actually drew it. Now, that person could have kept the card. They could have kept it. And I never would have known the difference because I was just doing so many at once that I was just illustrating everything. Yeah. And he emailed me and he said, hey, you drew on this. Do you want me to send it back? And I said, well, it's up to you. I said, if you want to keep it and pay me for it, that's fine. But I could just send you another one signing because, I'm not trying to like scam somebody out of money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, no, I like it. I'll keep it. I'll pay it for it. I'm like, well, that's nice of you because you could have just kept it. I mean, still had the signature. You could have just kept the thing. So, no, everybody's exceedingly nice.
Well, hopefully in the future, Magic the Gathering people will come back for more cards from you.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, the response seems to be good. So I don't know if I would hope they have somebody that sits in these Discords and on Twitter that looks for this stuff.
Keeps an eye on it. Yeah, it would be good
because if everybody hates the artwork, you would assume they'd be like, all right, nobody liked it.
Fuck this guy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I assume.
Yeah. Well, I would hope.
So it's going fine. I'm fortunate it hasn't died off, and neither has it become a crushing, overwhelming order after order after order because it allows me to have a good pacing to it. Because I don't want to rush, but I also don't want people. There are people in these things that have said they've been waiting for years, and I don't want to be one of those people who are like, it's been 2 years, and they just keep telling me they're still working on it. I'm like, holy shit. No one is going to wait 2 years for any card of mine. I will put off accepting orders before I get to that point. Now, they're probably far busier artists, but still, I would never make somebody wait years.
No, and that's a good work ethic. I mean, there's always horror stories.
God, yeah, there are. Man, I feel bad for some of these people.
In an alternate market, but one of like the biggest horror stories I know is that there's a guy adventure. This is one of my weird hat things. The guy who made the Indiana Jones hat for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a Indiana Jones fan, and he had created a company called VentureBuilt where he, by himself, made all these. He made the Indiana Jones hats, like in various styles, like gray, brown, but like very much that hat. And his pricing was for what he was creating. The pricing was excellent. The mistake he made was that when they decided to do Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they went to him to make the hats for the movie, which was a dream come true, of course. At which point, he should have either raised his prices significantly or stopped taking orders. And he just got utterly overwhelmed with orders and could not, he just couldn't keep up. Because think about it, right? One guy making the Indiana Jones hats, and then suddenly everyone finds out that this one guy is the guy who makes the actual hats for Indiana Jones. What do you think happens?
I would say unable to fulfill orders type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it utterly destroyed him, and I think that by the time he started raising prices, it was already too late, and people were backlogged for years. You know.
Yeah, that was
And,
one thing that I did immediately is I started sorting emails and not even responding to them until I had an idea of what I had to do.
You know what? I hate to bag on artists, but being one of my own kind, a writing kind, artists aren't always the best organizers.
No, I'm terrible. I'm horrible. I'm not an organized person.
I know, but you're way more organized than a lot of other artists I've met.
Well, I
hate to say this, but your OCD kind of saves you in this respect.
Well, that's the thing. Is the one thing I did right from the beginning, right from the beginning, was to get Excel and start running a spreadsheet. Because, I mean, as I said, I made a mistake even with that and drew on something because I wasn't literally like looking up and down at the spreadsheet. I just kind of was going. But at least because the numbering is the bigger problem. Some people want specific numbers. So I had to actually create a grid of every single number, 1 from 50, and start coloring them in when I'm using them. So somebody requested all 13s. Well, I had to do 13, 13, 13 on those 3 squares because I couldn't go sequentially anymore. I had to make sure I didn't. And then, somebody wanted the last card. They wanted the very last number of that card. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I had to bullet out that. I don't understand it. I understand why people want the first number. I don't know about the last one, but that's okay.
There's so much superstition in baseball.
Yeah, I don't care.
And I never understand it, but you know what? It's what people want, desire, and believe. What can you do?
Yeah, well, I'm sure there is a reason. Maybe that person,
I'm sure.
The first one they got maybe was a number this, and so they want everyone they get to be a number that. Okay, I can understand that.
I'm sure that not every dominatrix understands the nature of what the hell she's doing. Or
ain't that the truth?
So it's, it takes all kinds. We are a varied lot,
We
so
are
it's
indeed.
like some people want this kind of card, they want that. Different numbers are significant,
Yeah, lucky numbers, I get that. So,
but but it is. I still find it fascinating. So
do I.
Yeah. Well, I actually have some interesting content. Normally, I piggyback on you, but I am in the process of moving. I don't know if I said that at some point earlier.
You said you'd be moving soon, so yeah.
Yes, I'm in the process of moving in the next couple. I'm in the actual process now, so things are going to get really haphazard for me. But I'm trying to make sure that I still kind of read and watch interesting things to try and make it so that I don't just show up and say nothing. Yeah. So I actually read the Apocalypse War Essential Judge Dredd graphic novel.
Ooh, that's a good one.
You know what? I had read about this story many times and never actually had a chance to sit down and read it. Now, for anyone who's interested in getting into Judge Dredd, definitely check out the Essential Judge Dredd collection. They basically they take the different storylines and just slap them all together, because all of them, normally they were all scattered across 2000 AD books, right? But these are they basically take the story runs and they stick them all together, and it's great. I love the art style. I like the story. It's funny because I think from modern cinematic Judge Dredd, people forget what comic Judge Dredd is like, and this is why I kind of wanted to go back and read older Judge Dredd. It's because it is so. It's kind of. You know how the future is always kind of stuck in the present that it's conceived from, right? So
oh yeah,
this is a very Cold War 80s vision of the future, right? But it's also kind of post-apocalyptic in its own way. Even before things get bad, there is a fascinating post-apocalyptic feeling to the world of Judge Dredd. You know, it doesn't feel like a completely awful place per se, but it feels like a place where happiness is a bit tough to come by. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's overpopulation and fascistic militarism squashed into one thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is a lot of people forget that Judge Dredd is as much of a statement on fascism as it is. Because the judges are judge, jury, and executioner. You know what I mean? It's like, we think we got problems with cops today, and it's like, well,
No, it's the secret police, except they're
yeah,
not secret.
and yet the hero of the story is Judge Dredd, which is just, he's like the last, he's the toughest, he's the biggest bastard on the lot, but he's not necessarily a hero. That's what's kind of so amusing about him. Like, you're following him, the story follows him because he is the biggest fucker around. Like, he strikes me as the kind of man who has got too much grit in him for even the demons of hell to want to deal with. You know what I mean? Like that, yeah. So anyway,
Yep.
The Apocalypse War book is really great. It's essentially, so you have Mega City 1, which is the city that, like, if you know Judge Dredd, that's his city, which is like, I think
town.
almost, it's the eastern seaboard pretty much, isn't it? Isn't it all the mega complexes?
Yes, I believe it is supposed to comprise the entire eastern seaboard.
Yeah, it was essentially what happens is, so they have all the mega blocks. So anyone who's seen the Judge Dredd movie, they have those giant mega blocks.
I love how much they use the word mega. It's so great.
Oh, I know. So they have the mega
and
blocks.
yes, that is the entire eastern seaboard from the top of the United States on the east all the way down to the tip of Florida.
So then it begins with basically one mega block going to war with another mega block and starting a block war. And then, of course, other blocks get involved. And at first, the judges are like, well, you know what? Block wars happen. We'll let this go for a little bit. And then things get bad really quickly, and the judges are like, okay, get in there and cut that shit out. But it keeps expanding. Like, more blocks keep joining in. At which point, Judge Dredd and the other judges are like, what the fuck is this? And they're desperately trying to... Like, the beginning of the story is great because it's just focused on them trying to keep control of these populations of people from killing each other. But it keeps on spreading. And, like, what I really like about this Apocalypse War storyline is Judge Dredd just loses. Like, he wins in these little ways, but it's like the goal line just keeps getting pushed back further and further. And as the all of Mega City 1 starts to fall to this mania, they figure out this isn't normal. Like, something is happening. And at some point, they basically figure out that that somebody is putting something in the water supply. I love it because there's a little side thing where one of Judge Dredd's informers, basically, who comes and tells him what's going on. And Judge Dredd's like, why aren't you infected by this? Like, you drink the water. Or he's like, you live there. He's like, what the fuck? And what they figure out is that the guy doesn't drink water. He lives completely off of alcohol.
Right. He's an alcoholic saves the day.
And because of that, he's never infected.
Right.
And a lot of the judges aren't infected because they're drinking water from their super bikes. I love the super bikes. I think they do fucking everything. But so they figure out the water supply is being tainted, and they're trying to figure out how. And that eventually tracks to, he's not a Russian spy, but I think he's.
He's a commie. Yeah, no.
Is it? I thought he was
the Soviet
somebody.
Union.
I know it's a Soviet, but I thought it was a guy who got turned because I remember they were surprised.
Oh yes, you mean the actual
person
who did it? Yeah, yes.
And essentially,
it's the red thread.
What you realize is that it's West City 1, I think is what it is, West Mega City. So essentially, the main Soviet mega city has decided to wipe out Mega City 1, which is kind of like perceived as their direct competition, right? They proceed to follow this plan. And the plan essentially is that first they make the whole city go up against itself, and then in the confusion, they attack. And
East Meg 1. I had to look it up. East Meg 1.
Yeah, Mega City 1.
And they call them the Sobs. I always love that. They're called the Sobs.
Yeah. And what it proceeds to happen is that Mega City 1 gets the shit kicked out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Judges are dying left and right. They are being pounded by atomic weapons up and down. The mega cities are being destroyed. And what's hilarious is that eventually the Mega City 1 tries to retaliate and
This
send...
is the best part of this story.
Hold on.
Yeah,
We're not there yet.
Say it.
I know what part you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
I know, but so they try to retaliate and send bombs over, but the Russians have a shield that's like a trans-dimensional shield. So it literally like pops the missiles that hit the shield into another dimension, right? So Mega City 1 is pretty powerless in this situation. So at that point, East Meg drops invasion forces, and now it's a grand fight. And what I love is at one point, the East Meg 1 Soviets realize that the population, which is still in this like block war mania, is getting in their way. So they have to put a cure. They have to basically unleash a cure to make them more malleable to deal with, because they are essentially fighting everybody. And their big thing is like, we don't want to kill everybody because we want to take Mega City 1 and enslave them and make them dependent on us so we can use them for the labor.
What good is an empire if there is no one to rule over?
Exactly. So they're trying to do that. But Judge Dredd and the remainder of the judges, their whole mindset is, fuck these guys. We're going to fight, and we're going to fight to the death. We're going to make it so that it hurts at every step of the way. And a lot of this book, it is cleverly written in that Judge Dredd takes such a beating and he loses so many people, and so many people die, so that when you finally get to that moment where something goes hilariously in the opposite direction, you're just like, holy shit. And that's the thing. That's the reason I had read about this book for years. And the penultimate moment comes when essentially Judge Dredd grabs a crack team of judges, kind of what they got left, and the psychic. The psychic, I always forget her name. Anderson, right? Anderson.
Yeah, Anderson.
Who always ends up being really important. She's always kind of floating in the background, and then she's pops
always
up.
background until she becomes the key to anyone getting out of anything alive.
The key to everything, right? So Anderson and Judge Dredd and his tiny little team steal a ship from the Russians, and Anderson's able to read everyone's minds, so she's able to get all the codes they need, right? And and no one expects this, because at this point Mega City 1 is like a step away from being just crushed. So they take this East Meg ship, they fly back under the radar, and they get basically within right by the shield essentially of East Meg 1. And they go and they find one of the hidden bunkers, one of the atomic bunkers essentially. And they then use these super rifles that they've had for like half the book to essentially melt the ground and tunnel their way in. And then they secretly, very quietly, they get in there and they're able to take over this silo, which is a huge underground complex with tons of missiles. And at this point, Judge Dredd basically arms everything and goes to launch them all at East Meg. And what's great in this great moment is that he's there, he's about to launch, and one of the Russian soldiers is like, you can't do this. He's like, there's millions of people there. He's like, you're just going to kill everybody? And, oh man, what's the line? There's just this great line, and you're like, yeah, you pushed him too far. And I think that's what it is that the whole book, Dredd's just losing and losing and losing. And finally, the guy says, please, Dredd, don't do this. There are 500 million people in my city, 500 million human beings. You can't just wipe them out with the push of a button. And Judge Dredd says, can I? Half my city is burnt to ash by East Meg missiles, and you're begging me for mercy? Request denied. And he launches the missiles, and because they're basically right there.
Does he say you shouldn't start a war if you can't take the consequence or something like that?
I'm sure that line is said a couple times. But the missiles, he launches the missiles.
Oh, here it is. Half my city is burnt to ash by East Meg missiles, and you're begging me for mercy? Request denied.
Yes. That was the line I just read, yeah.
Great.
He launches the missiles, and the shields can't stop them. So in a single moment, Judge Dredd kills everybody. Like, it's not just that he does a launch and has like a first strike, and no, it's that they have no shielding because it's their own missiles. He wipes out the entirety of East Meg 1. Anyone who's not fighting in Mega City 1 is gone. Right? Everybody. And that's it. Like that. So, and then he surrenders, which is such an interesting moment to me, because he's like, what else can we do? Here you go, I surrender. and the soldiers won't kill him because they know that they're essentially the warlord, who's in in Mega City 1 will want to torture him. But it's a clever thing because they take the judges, Anderson and Judge Dredd, and they take them back to Mega City 1 where the warlord is, and then they essentially kill everybody in the silo for fucking up and concrete the thing shut. And the judges basically say to Dredd, "Did you know they were going to do that?" He's like, "Did you know that if you didn't surrender, that they were just going to kill us and concrete us in?" You know, and at which point they get back to Mega City 1, and the warlord basically hooks up pain receptors directly to their brains and says, "I'm just going to torture you for the rest of your natural born life. You know, like I want you to suffer for every moment." So they hook everybody up to torture devices from the judge crack team, and the warlord proceeds to try and finish crushing Mega City 1. Except here's the problem. Your army just lost their entire city. They just lost their wives, their children, everything. What do you think that does to your constitution when there's nothing? There's nothing to go back to. You have nothing.
Yeah, they don't care anymore.
Yeah, it kind of breaks their spirit. And, well, no, it does break their spirit. And the kind of like secretary of the warlord, who's just, you know, been picked on and had the shit kicked out of him by the warlord the whole book, basically says, "You know what?" He goes, "We're done." He's like, "What the fuck else do you want us to do? Like, every moment we fight Mega City 1 at this point, we're not getting resupplies. We're not getting more soldiers. We have no city. We've lost everything." And he basically goes and finds the secretary character goes and he finds Judge Dredd, and he unhooks him from the machine, and he's like, "Listen, I can't kill the warlord." He's like, it's too ingrained in me. I can't do it. He's like, "But you need to stop this." He's like, "We need to end this war. There's nothing left." And yeah, Judge Dredd kills the warlord, and the war ends. And the East Meg soldiers are basically they essentially surrender because there's nothing. You know, what else are they going to do? And the Mega City 1 basically use their own ships to ship them back. And the soldiers are like, "Well, you're shipping us back to a hole in the ground. What do you want us to do?" And they're like, "It's not a problem. You tried to invade our city, and this is what you get." And they're left to I think most of them emigrate to East Meg 2 or something like that, because I know there's like another big one out there. And the book ends with essentially the judges realizing that they need to rebuild Mega City 1. I mean, I think they said there's still like there's either 25 or like 30% of the population there that's still, and that much of the east of Mega City 1 is still standing. But like you get to the end of it all, and it's like East Meg is gone, just gone, and Mega City 1 has been obliterated down to about maybe 30%. And it's like, yeah, it's an apocalypse war. And what's really fucked up is that there's a West Mega City and there's a Texas Mega City, and they won't get involved because they don't want their whole thing was, we didn't want the East Meg to come after us when they were done with you. So they never got involved. So their own allies abandoned them. So I can't imagine what future stories will be like if those other cities ever need assistance. But yeah, it is a brutal story. I mean, the way that Judge Dredd and his crew just get battered and beaten up to this penultimate moment where their revenge is so utterly complete. Whether you agree with it or not, it is so utterly complete that, I mean, it's you feel it in a weird way too, because like I got to a point where like I was like, my God, I was like, they're just gonna destroy everything, you know. And then when you get to that moment and you realize what Judge Dredd's gonna do, and you're like, holy shit! I was like, he's gonna nuke them from the inside. He's gonna nuke everything. It's such a strange book. Yeah, I'm very curious. I gotta find the order because I want to know what the next story chronologically after Apocalypse War is, because I'd love to know like.
Well, I
Yeah.
think I can answer that because I have the complete case files collections,
Okay.
which I believe are. Let me check that. I believe they are in chronological. In chronological, that one's in 5. So let me look at
Okay.
complete case file because I'm actually going to link to that because well, even if it's not chronological, you want to get the case files 5 because not only is Apocalypse War in there, but the other definitive Judge Dredd story is in there, which is when Judge Death gets punched through the face and he says, "Gaze into the fist of Dredd." Or not Judge
Oh,
Fury
I have that.
gets punched.
I have that. Yeah, I have that one too.
Well,
I
that's in the
I got a
same
couple of them.
collection.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, see, I didn't see that collection when I was looking the other day.
Oh yeah, they're still around. They're big books. I have them
Okay.
all. Oh yeah, it does say in chronological order. Okay, so it is the Apocalypse War. Then I'm trying to see. Oh, it includes, but okay, it doesn't tell you what the order. But those are chronological. So if you get the case files, which I thought they were, because the first one is when he's brand new, and boy, does he drawn differently. He's much different looking.
Well, the art evolves quite a bit.
Well, yeah, because Brian Boland did the Judge Death stories, and
Yeah, this one's what is it? This is
not to mention the guy. What do you call it?
So Wagner and Grant do all the scripts for this, and the art for this is Boland, Dillon, Smith, and McMahon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, McMahon. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve Dillon. I didn't realize Steve Dillon worked on this.
Everybody at some point worked on Dredd at some point or another. Whether it was just on inks or whatever. There's a lot of people who are involved in that story.
Yeah, and I love Dredd because it's such a farcical vision of like the 80s future.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And yet it's so brutal, the shit that goes on.
Here we go. I've got a storyline thing for you. Apocalypse War was followed by City of the Damned.
Okay.
Which starts, which continues and concludes the storyline of the Judge Child quest, which was 2 or 3 stories before. So Judge Death Lives comes before Apocalypse War. So Gaze into the Fist of Dread is prior to that. Judge Death is actually 2 stories before Judge Death Lives.
Got it.
And what do you call it?
The thing is, like, I have a bunch of these, and I kind of just grabbed the Apocalypse War at random. I was like, what? Let's just start
the Cursed Earth is another one that's a big one. That's one of the big. That was probably the first big storyline. That's a very early one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just that's where I think Mega City 2 is introduced. There's so much that now people just associate with Dredd, but there's all these landmark stories which are great, but they really all.
Yeah, and it's
big stuff was through 90, really.
It's good that it is good. Like I said, it's good that it's good. I like that it holds up. I like that I picked up the book because I'd heard about this story for a while and I'd never gotten around to reading it. And I like that I actually read it and it was as like visceral and intense as I was hoping it was.
Oh yeah. That's like, the benefit of the Dredd framework is they can do anything. I mean, the body counts in a lot of these stories are.
Well, hold on.
It's Miracle Man level. That's what I thought of with Apocalypse Wars. This is Miracle Man, where it's just laid waste.
Yeah, he kills. Does he kill 1 billion? Is that what it is? Hold on.
Sure, millions. So, no, I mean, hundreds of millions.
When he blows them up, he kills millions.
Yeah, hundreds of millions, I think.
Yeah. What does he say?
That's what I'm saying. There's tons of them.
500 million people. Okay, so Judge Dredd single-handedly wipes out 500 million people,
and doesn't care.
And he does care. That's why he does it.
Well,
he cares intensely. That's why he does it.
When I say he doesn't care, what I mean is.
Yeah.
Doctor Who stops from killing the Daleks because he's afraid of genociding one race who killed millions over time. Dredd is like, fuck it, and punches the button in about 3 seconds.
So, when you read the line, half my city is burned to ash and you're begging me for mercy?
Yes.
So you read, that is actually the recap of what's happens at the end of the previous issue. So I read the actual scene from the previous issue, and you found the recap that they put in at the beginning of the next issue. That's very funny. They changed the line slightly. I love that. But yeah, that's so Judge Dredd kills 500 million people, and then East Meg kills. It's got to be a quarter of a billion people.
I saw 150 million, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean they kill a significant, like I said, I think there's only like 30-40% of the population of Mega City 1 left, even less. I think it was like 30%. So, I mean the body counts here are astronomical. And like I think one of the most intense scenes in the book for me is when the judges are still fighting off. This is before Dredd's team. They're fighting off the soldiers from East Meg, and all the judges are wearing radiation suits, and there's this long line of essentially like Mega City 1 people who are like marching through the snow and the ash, and they're all sick, and they're about to be attacked by soldiers from East Meg, and the judges save them. And they're like, thank you so much. They're like, can you tell us where to go? They're like, we're so cold and we're dying out here. And like the part of the city they're in is completely leveled to nothing. And one of the judges says, guys, they're like, you're in the radiation zone. They're like, you're not going to live. Like, you guys have got maybe a day or two before you die of radiation sickness. And Judge Dredd says to them, he goes, I can kill you now, quickly, or I can leave you here to die of radiation. And this big crowd of people basically, like, they have a moment and they ask the judges to kill them because
Thank
they don't
you, Judge.
they don't want to die the slow death of radiation poisoning. And the judges basically line up and mow the lot down with the motorcycles. And I'm like, oh my God, like that is.
It's grim. It's grim.
It's so it's so weird because at moments the comic becomes so absurd, and yet at other times it's just so grim. And it's like the comic only seems to work at the extremes.
This comic being the same one in which Judge Dredd for a while had a robot with a speech impediment that loved pasta.
Still has it.
Right, Wally.
In fact,
Wally?
In fact,
Wally.
that robot saves everybody. Because at one point he gets shot in the chest and it bails him out.
Where this robot exists alongside with the judges running people down rather than let them die of radiation sickness. Same comic.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the thing is, when you read the book, it makes you realize just how limited the movies are. Because I give credit.
The Carl Urban one is just dialed in. It's just
I give credit to Stallone. He did try to access the greater world, but it turns into a Stallone movie. Whereas the Carl Urban very much got Judge Dredd right, but then they really narrowed it. But it's fucked up because it's such a big world with so much fucked up shit in it. The thing that's
interesting about the Carl Urban one is it demonstrates better than, well, not better than. It demonstrates the idea of what the mega block itself, the hell that is just the mega block, and then you expand that out to the entire city.
Oh yeah, it's like out to infinity, yeah.
Right. So, but this is also the same comic where a psychotic judge made a fish into a judge. So,
I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, just wait till you get to Judge Fish, and Judge Cal, who is a lunatic.
I mean, one can make the argument they're all lunatics.
No, Judge Cal they basically made Caligula into a judge. Hence Cal.
There you go. Yeah.
Judge Cal takes over. You'll get to it. There's so many great things.
And that's the thing is that they're so. Every section is so small.
Here it is. I'll give you the two-sentence synopsis. Judge Cal was an insane chief judge of Mega City 1 who sentenced the entire population to death in 2101. He was the main villain of the 20-episode story The Day the Law Died in 78 to 79, inspired by the Mad Roman Emperor Caligula. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, but they're all packed in these little mini chapters, too, that I like. Like you can sit down and you can read one really quick if you've got 5 minutes, or you can read a couple of them and they just feed into each other, and it's almost like an expanded comic strip sometimes.
Well, it is. I mean, that's what it is.
And yet they pack so much in there. Like they really it's.
Dredd's got it all, man. It really does.
Yeah. So
you can see why Dredd made 2000 AD. Once that character arrived, 2000 AD is essentially bulletproof.
It is, and I'm curious. I am curious to read if the 2000 AD material without him. But I wonder if it'll hold up.
Well, it depends. Strontium Dog is very good. It's a similar type of thing.
I got Strontium. Is it Strontium or Strontium?
I don't know. I always say Strontium Dog. I don't know what it's.
Yeah, I got the Essential Strontium Dog book, so I'm curious to see what that is like. Which is that book is separate from Dread, so it
is. But I believe it's supposed to be the same universe.
Yeah. Oh no, it is. It is the same universe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because remember, Anderson's a mutant.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So there's crossover, but I don't know. The only thing I don't know is if they've ever been in the same comic together.
They have.
Okay.
There is. I did see that. There was a book
sure
where they were together. Because there's a really hold on. There's a really great frame that somebody pulled from that, which is Strontium Dog and Judge Dredd together, and the line one of them says about the way they look together. Let's see.
God. Really they're the most miserable pair of men you could ever see.
Hold on, I think I found it. Yep. Hold on, let me send this to you really quick so you can laugh your ass off.
Yeah.
If this internet ever loads. Come on, internet. There you go. Oh, here we go. Let me copy this. Copy link, and then you can laugh your butt off.
Let's see.
If the internet will respond. There you go. Click on that.
Okay, hold on. I'm waiting. It's still typing on your end. There it is. Okay, let's see. This says Warlord Community. Who the hell's going to... Yeah, well, yes. Yeah. God, yeah.
Who the hell's going to mess with us?
All right. Yeah.
And it's Judge Dredd and Strontium Dog walking together. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Ballad of Halo Jones came from 2000 AD, I'm pretty sure. There's lots of stuff that came out of there. I think did Death's Head come? Well, Death's Head might have been from. I don't remember. But in any event,
I have to.
Yes.
Yeah, I really have to. Read a bunch of that stuff. The
2000 AD is never that bad. I even its weakest stories are worth reading. But Judge Dredd is.
I'll
probably
start with the
high
Essential
watermark.
Dread and work my way back.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
So,
even if they only had Dredd, that's still enough.
Yeah, and honestly, I do think Anderson, the character of Anderson, is a really good.
She's got her own comics too, and a lot of them are very good. Yeah. So yeah,
and she's
in
good.
fact, I think she has her own. She has her own Case Files books too. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, does she? I'll have to check those out.
I think so.
So now earlier you mentioned The Mandalorian, and I want to talk about The Mandalorian before we move on. Not at length, but I watched the season finale of season 3, right?
Yeah.
And I was left with kind of a feeling, like I really wanted to be like, yeah, but I was kind of like, okay. And I think I had said to you earlier that like I haven't really been that keen on this season. It feels like they're trying to do a lot, but like, and somebody I spoke to said that the Darksaber has turned out to be the biggest letdown. Because
it's broken now, right?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah,
the whole thing of how it had to be passed kind of got thrown aside and all the rest of it.
Well, I like the clever way that they got it from the Mandalorian, from Jin. What is his fucking name?
I don't know. Jin Jardine or the other
Whatever.
way around.
Yeah, Mando. I like how they got it from Mando to Bo-Katan, which is essentially Mando got his ass kicked, and then she killed the thing that kicked his ass. So technically, if you go by like the order of warrior, it would go to her. And I was like, you know what? That is a clever way for the Mandalorian to not have to have that thing anymore. But what did piss me off was he lost the spear. He had that really awesome spear that he got in the one episode. What's her name?
Yeah. The armor or somebody in the spear. Or no,
and
he beat somebody for it.
And
Whatever.
the armor melted it down. And I'm like, fuck you.
Has he used his other cool gun since the first season either?
Oh, the long one? I think the long one got destroyed.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
I'm glad
I
gave up.
So either way, this season, I do like the way they let him pick up gear along the way, because at the end of this, at one point they take his jetpack away, and he ends up using a jetpack from somebody else. Like, and I was like, I wonder if he'll just keep that jetpack because it's like white too. It's stark white, and I was like, I wonder if that's just his new jetpack now because like he's broke and he can't find the other one. Like I do like that, and plus like he loses his gun, and he's basically using like like Empire copies, right? And I was like, you know what? I actually like the idea that the Mandalorian can't replace some of his gear, and he ends up just having to use the shit he picks up along the way. I do like that idea, but yeah, this season has been kind of like they're doing interesting things, and yet for some reason the way they're putting it together doesn't feel that interesting. Now, to be fair, I like it way more still than all the prequels, but I feel like the more they
It's kind of a low bar, though, isn't it?
It is. But I feel like the more important it becomes to Star Wars, the less they're willing to let them do interesting stuff.
Well,
right?
I was talking to somebody about this, and I said it's appropriate that his nickname is Mando because at first that was short for Mandalorian. Now it's because they've turned that show into the Star Wars blob where they don't really know what he is anymore. They just know they have to shove as much other shit in there as possible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of this season, it starts to feel more like the Bo-Katan show. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Katie Sackhoff, and I will watch a show about her being a badass Mandalorian, but give her own show.
Do that. That's yes. That's
and maybe they will, because I will say the way they ended this feels very end of a chapter, because and I will give them credit for that on some level, which is that they want to take back they convince the Mandalorians to get together and go back to Mandalore, and when they get there they basically find out that, oh surprise, fucking Gideon's back and he's made a base there and he's essentially trying to make stormtrooper Mandalorians using Beskar, right? Which was very stupid. It was cool that he got those red troopers that they use in oh god,
yeah, the Guardian something.
The red elite troopers. Yeah, they use those, and those guys are kind of neat. They're kind of badass.
Commandos, I don't remember.
Yeah, whatever. They eventually become the Imperial Guard, or they were the Imperial Guard.
Yes.
Yeah, so they show up. He gets 3 of those guys on loan from the other Empire assholes, and who become the First Order. So I don't know. Are they the First Order yet, or are they still just the remnants of the Empire? Who knows? So he gets 3 of those guys, and it's neat because that at some point or another the Mandalorians are going to have to deal with them, and then they kill the Jon Favreau Mandalorian, which I felt like he should have put up more of a fight, but I guess it was 3 of them versus 1 Mandalorian, and he had just killed like 100 stormtroopers. So and that's the thing. It was supposed to be an epic end, and yet it felt very bland. And I wanted it to be epic. It's got all the dressings to be epic, and yet I felt nothing. I just felt kind of in fact, one of this whole season, one of the things that struck me the most was when they put the child in the IG-11 suit. He's got a button that lets him say yes or no, right? And for like the next 5 minutes in the show, he's just typing yes, 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 yes. And I looked to my wife and I was like, you know what? This is the truest thing this show's ever done. Because if you gave my kids a suit like that when they were young with a yes or no button, they would have hit that button 9 million times till I pulled the power to the button. That is like the most real thing that show has done. But in the end, the Bo-Katan, she leads her Mandalorians against the Gideon, and it ends up being, Mando has his. I guess they tried to give the Mandalorian his hallway scene, which I guess that's become a thing now in Star Wars. Everyone needs a hallway scene where they kick a bunch of people's asses.
Well, you could thank Daredevil for that. Daredevil did that in the first season with that big, long, extended hallway fight, and everybody's like, wow!
Yeah, and then they're like, we're going to do this with everybody. Darth Vader has his, then Luke has, so now Mando has his. And it's basically him going through this hallway, and they're turning off these energy fields, and as he goes through, he's kicking the shit out of stormtroopers. It's a well-done scene. It was fun. I was not unhappy to watch. It just wasn't... It's like eating... it's like getting cookies from the grocery, right? Versus going to a bakery and getting like fresh cookies. There's this place around here called Cookie Love. They make the most amazing cookies, and they make these snickerdoodles. I fucking love their snickerdoodles. They're amazing. Some people feel like their weakness is bacon or something like that. The foods that you can't say no to. Cookie Love snickerdoodles. I can't say no to them. Now, if I go to the grocery, I can get snickerdoodles from some other brand that have been machine processed and packaged and have a expiration date that goes out 50 years, right? And I can eat those, and they taste like snickerdoodles, and they're okay. They're snickerdoodles. They are technically snickerdoodles. But I'm not, I can say no to them. I'm not amazed. I'm not yearning for them. Whereas Cookie Love snickerdoodles, I fucking love that.
You know what? You have very, very perfectly summarized what I think the problem with this show is.
Well, season 1 to me felt like fresh baked snickerdoodles from Cookie Love. It was new. It was doing kind of interesting stuff. It wasn't a big story. It was a very small story that focused, right? But since then, Disney has come and a big corporation has bought the bakery and said, we're mass producing snickerdoodles, everybody. And that has been the transformation. So I'm watching the season.
It's worse than that. Instead, what they've done is they have told that bakery that they are now to start moving the way they make their cookies to service the grocery ones.
Okay.
When The Mandalorian, even though I didn't love the first season, I did like the fact that it felt so disconnected.
Different. Yeah.
It was separate. Yes, there was the little baby that resembled Yoda, but it didn't seem to tie into anything except for, people will know what that is. But everything else felt like this was an independent character that existed in a universe that would let us start to see things that had nothing to do with anything that came before.
Yeah.
And they couldn't stick to it.
They couldn't stick to it. And so now, so Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian end up going up against Gideon, who, by the way, when fucking Moff Gideon shows up in a rocket robot Mandalorian suit, I was like, what fucking video game logic is this? I thought it was so stupid. When he shows up in this black rocket Mandalorian suit that's got hydraulic parts so he can punch hard. And I was
don't worry, I'm sure that the next time he shows up there'll be something even stupider.
Well, and I said to my wife, I'm done with Gideon. He should be dead. Now, here's the problem.
No,
you didn't see the body. Yeah.
No, forget the body. He was working on cloning technology.
Oh,
what do you think he was cloning?
So Mando blows up the clones. He has a clone bank there.
Yeah, sure.
I said to my wife, I was like, he's got clone banks someplace else.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's sure he did. Except that there's a backup whatever on whatever planet X whatever.
Yeah. Now the only thing I actually really did enjoy in this episode is that Mando goes up against the 3 Imperial troopers. Right. Now, by all rights, they should kick his ass. And the only thing that saves him is the fact that the child and him are fighting in parallel with each other. So Grogu is protecting his father with his powers while his father fights the Imperials. And that is the one moment in the thing where I was like, see, I like this. I was like, this is very Lone Wolf and Cub. This is, Grogu can't fight them directly, but he can push them around and he can pull their weapons away, or he can hold them when they're trying to jump. He's using his powers in these little basic ways.
See, and this is the thing that irritates me too, even though I don't like Baby Yoda at all. I think it's such a gimmicky thing. But the one thing they could have done, and the minute, of course, Skywalker shows up, it's dead in the water, is if the Mandalorian had shaped his Jedi powers into something nobody had ever seen and made him into a truly unique Force user as a father-son duo. That's an interesting story where they're actually completely cut off and they do their own thing.
Well, they kind of allude to it a little bit there because the thing is Grogu has walked away from Skywalker. He is staying with the Mandalorians. He is becoming a Mandalorian, which is interesting.
Are they going to let that happen?
I don't know. I don't
think so.
In this one moment, it's worth watching that fight because I do think it's interestingly done. Because by all intents and purposes, Mando should get his shit kicked out of him, but because he's doing it with him and his son are fighting together against these guys, it's what allows him to succeed. And in the end, when like Gideon is kicking the shit out of Bo-Katan, it is Mando and Bo-Katan and the child that take on Gideon, and stop him. Like he cannot beat them together. And what I love is in the final sequence. So they crash Gideon's ship. So the Mandalorians, I think, took the Gideon ship from him, and then Gideon destroys that ship in this episode. So the Mandalorians crash the ship into his base, which I love. And it's so great because Bo-Katan and Mandalorian go to basically shield the child from the fireball that's coming at them. And it's the child that saves them because he's the one that creates the force barrier that the fire breaks around. And I do love, like, it's annoying that there's these little interesting concepts thrown into what is otherwise kind of bland show. Because I'm watching that, I'm like, see, I love that. They think they're protecting him, and really he's protecting them. You know? But then the ending of it is very, very neat. It's almost too neat, like someone said to them, hey, there's no more Mandalorian after this. Because in very quick succession, Mando goes and basically says he's going to work for the First Order, doing bounties for them on the sly. He gets the head replacement to bring back IG-11 and gives Apollo Creed IG-11 to basically be the sheriff of Navarro, right? At which point he goes and he has land that Apollo Creed has give him. So he goes and he basically builds a house and he lives and the show ends with him literally sitting on his porch with his feet up, watching Grogu play with the frogs in like a little pool in front of their house. It is a cowboy western ending, right? But it's incredibly tidy. It is so tidy. It's like Disney saying, okay, we're shelving The Mandalorian now. Him and Grogu are happy and quietly living on their house and on Navarro, and we're going to focus on other things now. And I feel like it's basically the okay, we're done. We're done with this. We're done with these characters. I know that Mandalorian and Apollo Creed brought back this wing of Star Wars, but now that we've brought it back, we've got other things we want to do. And it's annoying because the things they want to do are mainstream things. They want to deal with Mandalore and Bo-Katan and get into more of the Star Wars shit that we all lost interest in the first place. Right? They essentially want to make Star Wars movies that are Star Wars shows. But I think at least what I cared about, was that it was a show that happened to take place in the sci-fi universe that is Star Wars, without having to be part of their miserable canon. No Skywalkers, no end of the universe Jedi Sith shit. Just assholes on the side doing their thing. You know, that's why I still think Solo is probably, for me, is rapidly becoming one of my favorite new Star Wars movies, because it wasn't about the fucking universe coming to an end. It wasn't. The stakes were small. It was a smuggler trying not to get his shit fucked. You know, just trying to survive and make a deal. The whole Darth Maul thing at the end, you know what? It's not even important to the rest of the movie. Yeah, and yes, Han Solo goes on to be this big fucking character, but like, if you don't see any of that other shit, Solo is still a fun movie. You know, and like, they managed, and people hated it, and yet they managed to take what is a main Star Wars character and tell a small, fun adventure story about him. And it's like, that's really what I want. Like, I'm fucking tired of your big attempts at these, you know, because, you know, Force Awakens, I thought it was fun, but Force Awakens is a recap of New Hope, right? And they started to do some interesting stuff with Last Jedi, right? I mean, like, it was a bold move, right? You did some different shit, and then the studio quickly was like, nope, we ain't doing that. And then they gave us fucking Rise of Skywalker, which is the worst. It's just the worst. So Yeah, I wasn't happy with the way Mandalorian season 3 came to a conclusion because I feel like it was the rise of Skywalker. It was the beginning of the end of this show because now they're doing Ahsoka Tano and they're gonna try and tie that in with Thrawn and like I don't know if they're gonna be able to restrain themselves or if it's just becoming thoughts, feelings.
Yeah, I basically said it. It's people are like, oh, okay, now that they ended Mandalorian this way, that means he's free to go do his own adventures. And I'm sitting here going,
no, it means they're not gonna do any more shit about him.
Why didn't they do that before? They waited till now because they had to pack the stuff in. What makes you think on the next set of adventures they won't pack the next thing in? Come on.
You know what I want? I want Bill Burr to come back. I like Bill Burr and the Mandalorian doing shit together.
We both want the same thing, which isn't going to happen, which is a disconnected thing.
Smaller stories.
Yes, small story. Tales of. I have said it a million times. I'm going to keep never shutting up about it. Give me the Tales of type stories where it's all little slices of individual things that have no legacy. I mean, they can have a legacy connection, but they don't have to keep going. Like, just give me a thing and be done with it. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. So, whatever.
Yeah, and don't be wrong. Like, I don't dislike Luke Skywalker showing up at the end of Mandalorian season 2 to save the day. I still like that, right? The problem is you can't get that without what it means. You know what I mean? And it has proved to be the negative. It's like you can't get it without. What did you just send me?
I'm sorry. I'm distracting you because I meant to send this at the beginning of the show as a joke.
Yeah.
That for some reason now they're making Breakpoint figures. That's Nomad, and they also made Walker.
Oh no! Oh no!
I'm so tempted to get it. Just
no. You know what? Like it's good because I mean we've hammered the point on this. So show me the Walker figure. Come here.
Here.
Oh, where is he?
Hold on.
Oh, there he is. I found him.
There you go.
Oh my God, that's tempting.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
The role that destroyed the actor.
For us. Yes.
Oh my God, look at him.
I meant to send that as a show opener because I'm like, how many years on is this from a failed game and they're making figures now? All right.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, the only game where you can kill Darth Vader right at the beginning. and the game goes on like nothing happened.
Goes, all right, I guess we'll keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't that important. I mean,
Obviously.
Speaking of games, actually, Joe and I have been actually thoroughly enjoying Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
For a game that got a lot of bad reviews. Now, it is true. I don't think I would enjoy this game as much if I were playing on my own.
Oh, I wouldn't play it myself. Absolutely not.
Yeah, but as a co-op game, for our particular brand of personality, as a co-op game, it's fantastic because, and maybe that's the problem, is that if you want to play this as a serious Batman game, no. But if you want to like have fun and talk a lot of shit with your friends, it's like playing a Batman B movie. Because like the guy they got playing Batman, not good. The Batman design, like
whoa, not good, awful, awful. The worst video game Batman in modern games by far.
And honestly, it's because Conroy is so good.
Yes.
Yeah,
but,
and he's not there now, so.
But even they couldn't even get a second string. I mean, I don't even know how to describe how bad the performance is. It's awful.
Yeah, so Batman's not great. Batman's design is not great. And then,
fortunately, he's dead.
Yeah, and then everything about the design is so peculiar. Like Alfred is definitely a mixture of Michael Caine and then like Alfred from the cartoon, and he sounds like it. The guy doing Lucius Fox is desperately trying to be Morgan Freeman, but not quite. Penguin is like a weird mix between like, the comic Penguin and then what's his name?
They took Danny DeVito's height and grafted Colin Farrell onto him.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Very weird.
And then like the main characters are such a strange thing because like Nightwing comes off as like a goofy Goomba.
Yep.
Like I said to you, I showed my kids the Matthew Broderick Godzilla. It's like an entry-level horror movie for kids. And in that movie, what's his name? The guy who did
Hank Azaria.
Hank Azaria plays like a New York, like a New Yorker reporter, like, hey, I'm walking here. And honestly, he's doing Nightwing from this game, who just comes off like this, he comes off like an Italian, like, this is hilarious. And then Batgirl is way too bubbly for somebody who's been shot in the spine and tortured by the Joker.
Yeah, Buffy the Batman Slayer.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and then Robin is kind of forgettable as like the tech nerd. He's just forgettable, really.
He's very forgettable. Yes.
And then Red Hood, for me, has become the
Red Hood's great. Red Hood's
absolute centerpiece of absurdity.
No, he went from a character we both thought was a joke at first to he is the strongest character in the game.
Hilarious. First off, only person who hides his face.
Yep.
Gold star right there, right?
Yep.
And then otherwise, like, he's just my joke is that he's bro Batman, or he's not Batman, right?
Yeah.
But he's just running around the city, gunning everybody down. There's no way to apologize for it. It's
misses
obvious.
No opportunity to remind people that he came back from the dead.
Oh yeah, he gives everybody shit. Yeah, I was Joker number 2. I can't.
Somebody's like,
I was
"Oh man,
number 2.
I was trying to jump from a building and I fell and I broke my arm." I was like, "Yeah, were you dead? Then shut the fuck up."
I was dead, man, and I came back from the dead. Yeah. He's such a broy asshole, and yet he's kind of so perfect. Like, there's something oddly authentic about a character who is supposed to be this absurd. But like Murder Bat, absolutely the Murder Bat. There's no way you can get around that. I mean, I am just shooting people in the face left and right, along with Batgirl. Like, at no point has anyone turned to me and said, gee, Red Hood, maybe you shouldn't, kill all these gangsters. We should really put them in prison.
Red Hood, could you maybe tone it down? Oh yeah, did the Joker tone it down when he caved my head in with a crowbar? Would you like to see my scar? It's right here. You can't miss it. It's on my fucking face.
It's fantastic. So, yes, this is like playing a B movie of Batman.
Yeah,
in
like
all
a bad fan film, which is great.
Oh, but that's what makes it so funny.
It is.
And I know it's not what they were. It's probably not what they were hoping for.
No, I don't think so.
But I feel like it's money well spent.
I agree.
Absolutely money well spent. Like,
I agree.
Just the ridiculousness of it. So,
yeah.
Don't play this game by yourself.
No.
You need to play this game with friends.
Don't play it thinking it's going to be a good Batman game.
Yeah, and don't play it seriously.
It's a fun, dysfunctional, siblings game.
And the combat is good. Like, their combat system is nice. Their upgrade system, the way you can mess around with the different suits. I like that they created like that many fucking suits for you to jump around in. All of that is fine. The story is ridiculous. The characters are absurd, but the combat is nice. Oh, you had a great example. You basically called it Outriders.
Yeah, it's very similar to Outriders.
It's very much Batriders, yeah.
Yep. Batriders.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because we've been having a really good time playing that, but for our own reasons.
Right.
So, and now take it away, Joe.
Well, speaking of nostalgia bombs, unlike how Mandalorian fumbled it.
Shit. Hold on.
Yeah.
Just because you said nostalgia bomb, I watched Maverick, by the way.
Oh, the Top Gun movie?
The Top Gun movie.
Okay, save that. We're too far in. Save it.
Okay.
Because we're going to be like 4 hours. Yeah. So
no, because I didn't want to review it. I just wanted to say really quick. I just found it to be a really sad movie. Like, everybody was like, "Oh, it's fucking nostalgia." I was watching that movie thinking to myself, "This is a really sad movie about like a guy who never grew up."
Well, that's kind of my impression of it. Is I think I'm not going to watch it. I just don't care.
You know what? Honestly, you should.
Well, somebody said to me, "Well, don't watch it for the just skip through the talky parts and watch the jet stuff. It's great." And I'm like, "Oh, you know what? Okay."
No, not at all. You should watch that movie. You can skip the jet parts if you want, but you should definitely watch that movie because there is a hell of a fascinating subversion of like the male 80s hero in there that I think you can miss it if you don't want to see it, and yet it's there. And I was really I got to the end of that movie and I was like, Jesus Christ, I was like, this is like a really tragic movie about a guy who can't grow up and like the wreck it makes of his life. Cause like, anyway, because you were talking about nostalgia bomb and a lot of people have said that movie is an utter nostalgia bomb, and it is trying hard to hit you right in the nostalgias, but there is a lot of weird, heavy shit that they're throwing at you in there. Like Maverick never growing up, and like what it does to his relationships, and like the fact that he's a 50-year-old. Is he 50? He's a 50-something-year-old captain because he can't get over the fact that he wants to be a fighter pilot. And there's like just something so juvenile when you're watching the movie where you're like, dude, it's like Iceman is an admiral, and you're like, well, I just want to be a fighter pilot, and you're like, there's just something so disturbed, and like I kind of start to feel sorry for Maverick. Like, it was weird. So anyway, nostalgia bomb. You were saying?
Well, nostalgia bomb that doesn't have any heaviness whatsoever because it doesn't want to is Picard season 3.
Oh,
which is fantastic.
We're doing that. Okay,
it's fantastic. I mean, there's not really much to say honestly about it.
I've been telling people they should see it.
It's great. It's great. It's completely empty. It is somebody. My view of it, which I already liked it, but I thought, okay, this is completely shallow and empty. But then somebody said, yes, but would you rather have the last thing with the next gen cast be Nemesis? And I went, you know what? Never mind. This is great.
I watched the clip of Data flying the fucking Enterprise
the Enterprise D, yeah,
like an X-wing through the
it's the trench run.
Death Star.
They did a trench run. They did. It's
Enterprise.
Yeah, it's what do you call it? Calrissian flying the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, it is phenomenal.
It is great. So
So
when they said it was the Borg again, I thought, they blew it. I'm like, we're going back to the fucking Borg again. Now the thing is, it's pretty clear that what they didn't even care about the enemy. It's very obvious that they didn't even care about it being the Borg. The Borg was their way to get him to be Locutus again. They wanted to bring Locutus back. And what they did was they made his son into Locutus. He's got the same thing on his face. He's got the same armor. And then Picard has to jack himself back in to give his son a hug to break him out of the Borg thing. And it lets the Borg queen come back. They use the same voice actress. It's clearly not her in the makeup.
Oh, she's frightening looking, though.
She's great. You know what she looks like, though? This is the thing. She looks like Overdog from Space Hunter. She looks like the Michael Ironside villain from that forgettable science fiction 80s movie with, I think, Molly Ringwald when she's 14.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, with the big where he's up in the thing. That's what she looks like. Overdog is the name of the character. Go look it up. I mean, it's a torso with some arms and a fucked up face. That's what she is. That's what Overdog is.
You know, I had completely forgot.
I never forget that movie. I love that.
Oh my God. I always forget that's Michael Ironside.
It is. And he's great. He's like, blah, blah. He's doing this really weird mouth thing. Ironside's great. So, So that's all it was, because the shit with the changeling gets forgotten about almost immediately. It doesn't matter, because my thing was, okay, are the Borg just going to kill the changelings? Because they should. They should just wipe them out, because there's no reason that the Borg work with anyone, period. So it would make complete sense that they got what they needed from the changelings. I was waiting for them to reveal that they had destroyed the entire changeling race. I was waiting for it, and it never came.
That would have been fascinatingly heavy.
That's the Borg move. So it made complete sense that they would look at them as the only real threat, because they could shift their anatomy. So they're like, well, they could actually probably fuck us up. So we're going to pretend we're going to use them, get their DNA shit, and wipe them out. That would have been great. But they didn't. They just literally just forgot about the changelings. Except now they know how to find them if they're there. They have new technology that Crusher suddenly invented that lets them detect changelings instantly. So changeling threat eliminated in the course of one episode. Borg's blown up because they had a exhaust port in the middle of a Borg cube, and Data blew it up. So they're what? So the villains are completely empty and meaningless. But it doesn't matter, because what became very clear was they just wanted you to see these people back together, having one last mission. Everybody survives, which is great.
Worf has one line that is so epic.
The threesome one or a different one?
No, he says, was it the line, oh, for a minute there, I thought we were going to live.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, or something like that. And I was like, oh, God.
Worf has numerous great lines.
You're so precious. Yeah.
Worf's great. He's still the MVP of the whole show, as he always was.
He came back because they basically said, We're going to give you the best lines.
Oh, but he is head and shoulders the best thing in the entire show. Without a doubt, Worf, his whole thing, his interactions with others, his new persona, it's all great. It's just like, even stupid shit with him is really good because him and Raffi were on the intelligence thing together. And this is something that doesn't really make sense for old Worf, but does make sense for new Worf. And she's been estranged from her family forever. And because she's in Black Ops, because like her son, at one point, her ex-husband told her at the very beginning of season 3, you have to decide, because she says, can I see, my son? Will you take me, will you set up a meeting? And he says, I'll tell you what. He's like, you have a choice to make. You either are going on this mission or you're going to care about your son. Which will it be? And she hesitated. He went, I thought so. And he's like, fuck you, and fucks off. And so basically at that point, she gives up on ever seeing her family again. And she says, I think she says at one point to Worf something about, and the fact that we're Black Ops means that everything that I've done, they'll never know what it meant because we can never reveal it. And at the end of the show, she gets a call from her son who says, somebody sent me all the stuff you've been doing and what you have done for, the planet and everything else. Would you like to meet your granddaughter? And she has this breakdown, and Worf walks in and he's like, what's going on? And she's like, she knows it's Worf, obviously. We all know it's Worf. She says, somebody leaked this intelligence, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I don't remember. He says something about the fact that, we used to work in secret, but there are things that are more important than secrecy or something like that. I don't remember what the line is. And then he hugs her. And, because she says something about, and then he says something about how tears are often seen as the body's defense against pain. So I hope your tears are good ones. And I was like, holy shit, is Worf going to cry? And he almost looks like he's going to, but he doesn't. But he hugs her, which Worf does not fucking hug anybody. So there's all this little stuff where it's all just nice send-offs for everybody. And the best thing in the whole deal is they go into the Borg cube because of course it ends up that Jack's in the cube and Jack has given up, and he says, you know what? I've never felt like I fit among humanity. At least the Borg accept me. And of course Picard's like, no, they don't. They're using you. They just need you because you're an evolved version of what they want. They don't care about you whatsoever. They'll turn on you in a second.
What the fuck is he at the end of the day?
He is a super Borg. He's a super organic Borg. Basically, they did those stealth infections on anybody under 25 in Starfleet, and he is an emitter. He can control them psychically, essentially. He's Professor X. So he can, or the Shadow King, probably a better analogy. He can take control of any of those Borg people. A couple of times in the show, he sort of did that, and you weren't sure what was going on. It's because he could control all the drones.
He took control of Geordi's daughter at
one
point, didn't he?
Yes. And then he did it where he was seeing through people's eyes at points, and you didn't know what it was. And that's what it is he is a mobile emitter. He can basically go around and be a collective unto himself. And so when he's hooked up to the cube, then he becomes like a super galactic emitter because now they have a giant antenna attached to his nuts or whatever. So he could just control the ships back at Starfleet, and when they blow up Space Dock and everything, which they do. They fucking blow up Space Dock. So that's what his thing is they engineered him to be the super thing. And he's like, well, they engineered me. They're really my parents. Fuck it. Whatever. I'm just going to join them. And of course, Picard gives him a hug. Or actually, it's a good, I say that like it's stupid. It's actually not. Picard dives in, fucking Ghost in the Shell style, where he fucking stabs himself in the neck with a electrode. Goes in, and he's sitting there, and he's trying to convince Jack to leave, to disconnect. He's like, no.
Doesn't he say basically, if you're not going to leave, well, then I'm just going to stay here with
essentially, he says, well, he's like, I spent my life running from lots of things. I'm not running from this. So if you won't leave, then I'll stay with you until whatever happens.
Yeah, he pulls was it a Robin Williams in What Dreams May Come?
Exactly. Yes.
If you're not going to leave hell, then I'm going to stay in here with you.
Right. Yeah. And that's what breaks the spell for Jack, and that's what gets him out. But right before that, there's a point where they're going through the ship, and Geordi or somebody says, if you go after Jack, he's so far into the ship, we can't get a transporter lock, and we're not going to be able to talk to you. It's too much interference. And so
he says that to Riker and Worf.
It's Riker, Worf, and Picard.
Yeah.
And so they're going to a certain point, and Picard's like, okay, you now have to go and leave. You cannot follow me into this. And they have this, it's a great moment, because basically Picard starts to get very emotional and says, number one, you've always backed me. You've always had my back and done everything I've ever asked you for. I just want to thank you. And Wrecker's like, I'll follow you into the gates of hell, man. Anytime, anywhere. It was all worth it. And then he goes to say something to Worf, and Worf's like, look, there's 2 words that Klingons don't know. Defeat and farewell. And he just gives him this look, and then he turns around and walks away. It's just great. It's stuff like that means I don't give a shit about the rest because it feels like the show. No, it feels like a good way to wrap things up.
They made a really good next-gen finale movie.
Yes. And so, it all gets tidied up. 7 gets This is the only bad thing. They tried to make Shaw into like a nice guy at the end. So, they did bring Tuvok. Janeway didn't show up, which I was shocked. I can't believe Janeway didn't show up. They did not. Janeway did not show up.
Don't they kill Shaw?
Yes, Shaw gets blown, a hole blown in his chest and dies in Seven's arms, and then calls her by 7 of 9 instead of her human name, which was always the thing she was annoyed at him about. So I'm like, okay, they're trying to make him like he's really underneath a nice guy. And yes, they can't resist. So then you find out that, because she's sitting there and Tuvok is an admiral, and he's like, yeah, you stole a ship, Star Trek 3. There's so many Star Treks before that they mimic in this thing. He's like, you stole a ship, Excelsior style. So, and she's like, you know what? She cuts him off, says, I can't work in Starfleet. She's like, you guys want people like Shaw. Buy the book, drones, people who are just going to do whatever he says in the field manual. I tried. It ain't for me. And Tuvok's like, before you say another word, and kind of pulls out a little thing. And then it's Shaw's final report on her. And sure enough, he says, oh, I give her a hard time, but the truth is she's the bravest. And I'm like, oh, God, he would never say this. This is bullshit. They're trying to make it like he's not. They should have just left him as an asshole. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with his character. They made him into a very classic Starfleet or military guy who didn't want to deviate, who followed his orders. That's fine. There was nothing wrong with him. He had PTSD from the Borg, which guess what? Another great captain in Starfleet's history had that. There was nothing wrong with that. We've seen it before. It doesn't mean you're a shitty captain, obviously. And he wasn't actually ever wrong. When they got to a point of no return, he immediately backed them. So everything Shaw did was fine. The fact that they did this softening shit, that was the only part where I'm like, you couldn't just leave it. It was fine. Don't do this, because it's like a different character. It's like his twin brother that was actually the big softy on the ship, and the two of them were kind of swapping out on the secretly. That was dumb. They should never have done that, but that was the way that they gave 7 captain. They made her captain of the Titan, which they renamed to the Enterprise G. So the Titan is now the Enterprise.
What?
Yes. So now they've rechristened it as the Enterprise.
Oh, okay. Well, what's going to happen now.
So the new show is 7 is the captain, Raffi is her number 1, and then Jack Crusher is the ensign. Yeah, I think he's an ensign.
Wow. So
and that's your show.
Are they gonna do it?
Well, I think based on this, they probably will, because this show has gotten a very warm reception. So, which I'm fine with, because 7, and they even...
Oh, and Geordie's kid is there as well.
Yes, and she's, helmswoman or whatever, helmsperson. And
so basically, does that make that Star Trek Next Generation?
It's current generation, because the guy keeps saying he wants more stories in this time. Not future, not past.
No, I know, but what I mean is, this is because it's Crusher and Geordie's daughter. This is the next generation of Next Generation.
It's weird because the last episode's title is The Last Generation, but it's not. They don't die, because I thought when I saw that title, I went, oh, they're gonna kill them all. Like they're all gonna get fucking blown up. As like, and then they'd have like a, I don't know, a holographic shrine.
The Titan is now the Enterprise G.
Yes, which is fine, because it's a great looking ship.
It's a great way to butter people up too. Use the ship. Oh yeah. Get people to like it, and the
even more of the setup that clearly seems like they're setting up another show is.
Yeah.
7's like, all right, let's get ready to take her out. And Raffi's like, all right, so what's your catchphrase going to be? There have been great ones before. What are you going to say? In other words, to, engage, make it so, whatever. And she goes to say something.
This totally got the legs cut out of it by the, what do you call it? This was subverted by the trailer for Strange New World Season 2. Because they have a scene like that with Spock where they say, okay, they're like, you're in charge now. What's going to be what's your phrase? And he's like, make the ship go or something like that.
Yeah. Now with her, as soon as she goes to say it, they cut to the exterior and then it goes to warp, so you don't know what the word is.
Oh, that's good.
So they don't reveal it, which I'm like, oh, okay. And then the very end of it, which is, did you read about the last scene at all about what they actually shot?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So then they're all in they're on Guinan's bar, and they keep talking about her as if she's around, but she's not in the show. So I don't know, I guess they were just trying to allude to her being, around somewhere. And so they're all having a last drink before they go off their separate ways. And then Picard's like, well, before we go, and he takes out a pack of cards. And they're like, oh, Riker's like, sure, I'm always ready to play poker. And so they mimic the end of the series, which was, of course, the poker game.
Okay.
And so they're dealing cards, and then the camera kind of goes above them, and they play the entirety of the Next Generation theme as the camera just keeps steady shot. And apparently, according to what the guy who directed said, he's like, oh, yeah, they played cards for 45 minutes, and we filmed the whole thing. That's not made up. They were playing cards and drinking. So somebody's like, we have to see that footage because it's got to be a riot. But the shot just keeps going on for, I don't know, 3-4 minutes as they play it, and then that's the end of the series. Is them playing cards, which is exactly the same as it was.
That's a great way to end it.
Yes. And then, of course, we have a post-credit scene.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, it is at once stupid and completely fitting. Jack Crusher's in his ready room, at which point Q shows up. In a fucking awesome outfit, I will say. They gave him some kind of
why?
No. Okay. It is tremendously dumb.
Why would they do that?
It is funny though, because Crusher's like, I thought you were dead. And Q's like, oh, humans, always thinking linearly. And he's like, I'm here for your trial. And he's like, what trial? You told my father the trial was over. He's like, yeah, his trial's over. Yours is just beginning. So yes, I'm hoping they just did that as kind of a wink and a nod, and they do away with it or it's just an excuse to have old Q show up as wise ass
so
Q.
basically, yeah, not the we're getting into
not
the
diseased madman Q.
Yeah, the timey-wimey traveler. So this is a Q. This is previous Q.
I want this El Capitan type Q.
Yes.
If they bring that back, I don't care. Whatever. He's right. What the fuck does time to a Q? It doesn't matter.
Now, isn't Q and Crusher Senior, like the older Crusher brother, the same thing at this point?
I don't know what Wesley is supposed to be. I don't know what the Traveler is.
It would be really interesting to have Traveler Crusher show up and, have him see, Picard Crusher.
Yeah,
I mean,
The thing is, I'm looking this up. Yeah, okay. So the Traveler seems to be something else. Okay. He's not a Q, so I don't know that he's as omnipotent I don't think he's as godly as the Q are. He seems more like a enhanced time traveler. So apparently he can jump across realities and time, but he does not appear. Well, he can shapeshift apparently. So Jesus, is the Traveler is he a Q? I mean, maybe he is an exiled Q.
Oh,
could the Traveler become a Q? Okay, here it is. Hyde and Q seem to demonstrate that any being could become a Q. Oh, okay. So I guess he could be. And there are beings more powerful than the Q. Okay.
If they decide to do another season, I do hope that they at some point bring Traveler Crusher and Picard Crusher together.
Well, hey, that's fine. I'm sure that would be something they would get into.
Because they're fucking brothers. It would be fascinating to see that dynamic.
Well, yes. I don't know what the Travelers are, but it could be that the two of them show up and they bicker, which is fine.
And they've already referenced Crusher in Picard Season 2.
Oh, well, in Season 3 as well. Because Crusher is talking about how she lost Wesley to the universe. She doesn't want to lose Jack too, blah, blah, blah. So, so Wesley's obviously out there, space bopping around. Space bopping. But, oh, geez, Bat Riders or Space Boppin'? I guess Space Boppin' is a better show title. Space Bopping. Or actually, Bop In with the apostrophe. Is that apostrophe? Yeah.
Well, I am about to finish Discovery Season 2. Okay. At which point I will skip.
Yeah, skip it all. You don't need to see any of it because nothing of the other stuff even shows up.
I'm going to skip directly to Picard Season 3.
you'll have a good time with it.
I've seen a ton of clips and read all about it, so like I know what I'm getting into.
It's very fun. It's very fun. Now, for my movie review, this is unusual for me, although it does tie a little bit into what you were talking about.
You
earlier
watched a rom-com?
No, I watched a Western.
Oh,
from
fascinating.
1960. Okay, and I've got now. There's some setup for this because anybody who's listened for a while probably knows.
What is it
I'm not a
called?
Western guy. Hold on, I want to set this up first.
Okay.
I'm not a Western guy. There's basically I own 2 Westerns, and they're the only ones I ever rewatch on purpose.
Which ones?
Once The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Once Upon a Time in the West. That's it. That's it.
Tombstone? Jesus, man.
No, I don't. I honestly, it's a fun movie, but I would never rewatch it. I don't care. I'm not a Western guy.
So many times.
I'm not a Western guy.
Okay.
So, normally I would never even go close to a Western, except I happen to see that Criterion put out a tweet, and I want to find it because the way they describe this is what suckered me into it. It's inaccurate. I will say that. But I think I know why I don't think it's inaccurate intentionally. I believe it's inaccurate for a modern audience. So hold on, let me find it. It is... Okay, here it is. It was on Jack Nicholson's birthday, apparently. Watch him in 2 moody Westerns, The Shooting and Ride in the Whirlwind. Dreamlike and gritty. Shot back-to-back in 1966 for Roger Corman. Roger Corman.
Okay, so
Ping number 1.
What is this one called? Dreamlike?
The Shooting. No, The Shooting. Eerie and existential. The Shooting, 1966. Blah, 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 blah. Here, this is another line. A singular vision of the weird Old West. And then it was described somewhere else as Kafkaesque. And I went, wait a second. Weird, Corman, Kafkaesque.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've seen some... Jack Nicholson has made some strange Westerns.
Okay. I think all of that only applies to the audience in the 60s who were used to classic Westerns. Because to me, there is... Don't get me wrong. It's excellent. This is a stellar film. I might actually buy it.
He made one with Marlon Brando. Right?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but yeah, he did. He did several. He did a bunch.
And that's a fucked up Western because essentially Marlon Brando is trying to kill Jack Nicholson because he's like an outlaw and proceeds to kill everybody around him. And then the movie basically ends with Brando Brando is supposed to be comes off as the good guy in the beginning, but then you realize he's just so fucking brutal and awful. And by the end of the movie, what's his name? Nicholson catches up with him, and the last shot of the movie is basically Nicholson slitting his throat, and you being like, "Good, yeah, kill the guy," because someone's got to stop him.
Sure.
Nicholson's done some strange Westerns. I have not seen this one, though, The Shooting.
The other thing is I kept seeing it referenced as having a, quote, provocative ending. And I went, okay, 60s, weird, strange ending. Don't look up the ending. Because I want to see if you jump right to it. So I went, okay, I'm going to watch. And it's only 90 minutes. And not even. It's like 80-something minutes. So it's short. So I'm like, okay, this is, I'll watch it. Fuck it. Why not? Why not watch a Western? Because I never review Westerns. Lando likes Westerns. If it's good, he'll want to see it if it's any good. I do think you'll want to see this one.
Wow, I love this line. It's a long, hot trip across the desert with a purposeful woman, a homicidal gunslinger, the former bounty hunter, his simple sidekick, a bearded stranger, and the unknown quarry.
That is mostly accurate.
Okay.
Mostly. The purposeful woman thing, sort of. Okay, so here's the movie. Movie starts out right away. The main character, whose name is Will, is riding with a horse and a mule, and he is being followed. We only see the feet of someone following him. Now, this is the one thing, because this is a movie that it's both simple and I think it is open to a lot of interpretation and kind of, I think it would reward multiple rewatches. So I do intend, I'm going to watch the commentary. Criterion has the commentary. I want to hear that. So I want to do the review first before I hear the commentary because they may explain all this. And there is one thing I read after the fact that makes complete sense having watched the movie. So he's riding, he keeps turning around, he keeps, like, it's very clear he knows he's being followed. But then at one point, he cuts a bag so that it's leaving a trail. for whoever is following him to be able to follow. And I thought, why would he cut the bag for a trail? Like that still doesn't really make sense.
Why would he lead them? Yeah.
Yes, unless he was just one of these people who's like, you know what? I want to know what I'm dealing with, which could be because he does come across as, I don't want any bullshit. I just want to know what's going on types. So maybe it was as simple as, rather than me being toyed with, let me just fucking face whatever's coming at me. So he arrives back at a mining camp, comes to the mining camp, and is shot at immediately by Coley, which is the simple. He does come across as, I don't know if simple would be the right word, but he's certainly not the smartest. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I don't think he's supposed to be simple like there's something wrong with him. I just think he's supposed to be doesn't really see much past his own, 2 feet type of person. You know what I mean? Not stupid, just not really sharp. So he's shot at, and he's like, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, who is that? He's like, it's me, it's Will. And he's like, oh, all right, get in here. And he's like, why? He's like, because you might get killed. And he's like, so he runs into the tent. And he goes in there, and Coley's like, I didn't know what you were. I've been in this tent for 2 days just getting ready to be killed. He's like, killed by who? And he says, and where are Coyne and Leland? And he says, and you find out Coyne is his brother, and Leland is another guy that I guess is in business with them at the mine. So they're miners. That's essentially what they are. And this is their mining camp. And he says, the other night, Coyne and Leland went into town, and I went to sleep. And then I got woken up by the two of them coming back to camp, and they were yelling at each other. And Coyne burst in here, grabbed all his shit, and ran. And he said, and Leland said that when they were in town, and I assume this was with horses because there's no cart or buggy shown, that they trampled a man and a little person, and the little person might have actually been a child. And he says, and then I woke up to hear Leland talking to somebody, and I opened the flap, and all I could see was Leland. And I said, Leland, who are you talking to? At which point Leland got shot in the face and died, and I buried him. And you see his grave. And Will is like, and they didn't do anything else? They didn't kill you? And he's like, no. He's like, and nobody else has shown up? And he says, no. And he's like, something about this doesn't make sense. He's like, give me your gun. And he says, where's your gun? And he says, I lost my gun. I was fever sick for a couple of days, and I lost my gun. But he doesn't say how. And so he's like, and so they kind of wrestle over it, but finally Will gets the gun from him and says, all right, I'll figure out what's going on with this tomorrow. I need to get some sleep because I've been riding all night. So they go to sleep. They wake up the next morning, and Will is saying, is still kind of like fixated on why has it been 2 days and nobody has shown up here if this thing that you say is happening has happened. At which point they hear a gunshot, and Coley immediately runs for cover, and Will just stands there. And Coley, where he ran to shelter, was up on a hill. So he says, do you see anything? And he's like, yeah, something. I see something. He's like, yeah, there's somebody coming. He's like, how many? And he's like, I can't tell. He's like, is it just one person or is it more than one person? He says, oh, it's one person. It's a woman. And then immediately there's no threat, which typical Western. So immediately he's like, oh, it's a woman. And he comes down the hill. And they see a woman standing there with a gun. So she comes down and she says, I had to shoot my horse because he broke his leg on rough terrain. Can one of you help me get this stuff off the horse? And Corley is immediately like in love with her. So he's like, sure, I'll help. And Will's like, yeah, we'll help. So they go and look, and immediately Will starts inspecting the horse. And he says, this horse doesn't have a broken bone in its body. Why did you shoot him? He does look like you rode him next to death. Why did you shoot him? And he doesn't get an answer. The camera just cuts away. But it's obvious she just shot the horse, that the horse was not injured. So then she's back at the camp, and she says...
By the
yes.
way, interesting side note.
Yes.
One of the biggest fights I ever had with an advisor was in my writing program, because when I was writing a book called Karma Cowboys, I had a character who shoots his own horse out of anger. And my instructor, who had written several sci-fi westerns, was like, a cowboy would never shoot his own horse. And we had
that's not true.
My God, we had a huge argument over this, because I was like,
this movie would dispel that immediately.
If he was, if he was in the wrong frame of mind, or if the horse was hurt, or any, and in the case of this story, the horse represented something, and he shot it, but he would not have it. Like, I ended up switching my genre because in the end, I was so caught up with Westerns had to be the way he thought they had to be. And it's funny how people have...
Oh, he'd hate this movie then.
Well, people have their rules. Well, that's what's fascinating about a lot of the Nicholson Westerns, because they didn't follow those prerequisite, cowboy movie rules that people had.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, go on.
So she says, didn't you used to Will, she says, didn't you used to be a bounty hunter? And he said, yeah, until I got tired of it, and now I just mine for a living. And she says, do you make a lot of money at it? And he's like, I do all right, at which point Corley says, yeah, but we don't make that much money, because you can already see kind of where Corley's going to be in this movie, because he's immediately smitten with her. And she says, well, she's like, I could use a horse and a guide to get me to this town. She's like, I will pay you way more than you're going to make from mining here for 2 to 3 weeks worth of work. And Will's keeps saying, no. And she keeps insisting. And with Corley kind of hemming and hawing at him, he finally says, all right, fine. He's like, I'll do it. And he's like, why are we going there? And she won't say. And he's like, fine, whatever. And so they start off. And right away, she is just antagonistic, and not just like not in a bickering they're going to fall in love way, in a why are you being like this kind of way. And he keeps asking her, why are we going there? And she just will not answer. She either misdirects the question or bypasses it, but she will not answer. And you can tell he knows he made a mistake right off the bat, that he should never have done this. And that having Corley along was also a mistake, because he says he wants to bring him along, and I think it's because he just wants somebody else there, but then he realizes that's a bad idea too. Because Corley just is head over heels for her and won't shut the fuck up. And plus, she keeps randomly shooting her gun off because she thinks it's fun to shoot her gun. And it just annoys the fuck out of him. Because he's like, why are you doing that? And she's like, it's fun to shoot. And so she's just shooting at random stuff. And it spooks the horses, and it pisses off Will. And Corley kind of gets jumpy around it, but he doesn't care because he's in love, or he thinks, whatever. And so they're going along.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah. And then at one point, she seems like she's going to be sick, like she kind of doubles over, and then she falls off the horse, and they have to kind of revive her. And so, he's like, maybe we should turn back. You don't seem to be all that well. And she's like, I'm fine. Let's keep going. And he's like, okay. And then at one point she says, well, let's stop off in this town. He's like, why? It's out of the way. And she's like, it doesn't matter. How much out of the way is it? He's like, it's going to be another whatever amount of miles. She's like, well, then we better ride fast. And he's like, he says something along the lines of, go fast on 4 feet. Go fast on 4. You're going to walk on 2. Meaning she's driving the horses kind of like with the last one to exhaustion. Yeah. But whatever, she's paying. So he's following her. And then at a certain point, what you understand is now he has to know what the hell is happening. It's no longer just curiosity and that he should turn back, but now this is too much buildup and he has to know what she's trying to do. So so right about that point, they stop to make camp. And again, constantly, they're needling each other the whole way, but not again, good-naturedly. This is not moonlighting.
Yeah.
This is, are they going to fucking kill each other at some point?
Yeah. All right.
So at some point, they make camp, and Coley gets her gun and starts firing off randomly, and she goes fucking berserk. And Will's like, why are you so upset? Would it be that your gunshots are a signal to somebody? At which point, a man in black comes riding out of the shadows. This is about the midway point of the movie, and sure enough, it's Jack Nicholson. And you find out that he is a hired assassin, and he is a dangerous level of, I will fucking toy with you and I have no problem killing the both of you right here, and I'll still get her where she needs to go type. Like, that's immediately established. Will is very aware right away of what he is and how dangerous he is. Corley just sees him as a threat to his imagined romance with the girl. And so they get to this town, and this is kind of, sorry, I jumped a little bit too far ahead. Right before that, they arrive at that town she wanted to go out of the way of, and Will observes that she's trying to get a map or something or find out information from somebody. So again, he doesn't know why she wants to get there, and now he can't let go of it. But in that same stopover, Corley finds out, because he had said that Coyne had taken his horse called Shorty. his favorite horse, and basically taken his horse and left with it. And that horse is in the town. Coin had sold the horse for supplies, I think. And he says, Will, give me $50. And Will's like, why? He's like, because I'm going to pay this guy to not, because he's going to kill Shorty. He's going to basically like make him into glue or whatever, something. He's like, the Shorty, they don't think he's worth keeping around, so they're going to kill him. I want them to keep him until I come back. So he gives him the $50, and I'm like, okay, this character is not that sharp, and he cares about animals. He's fucking dead. That was the immediate signal to me that he was not going to make it back. Because there was a part of me that, with the things I'd read about the movie, just in general descriptions, I'm like, he's going to be the only one that survives. Everyone else will be dead. As soon as that thing where he showed compassion to an animal, I'm like, nope, he's fucking dead. This movie will not spare this person because he seems to be a genuinely nice person, even though he seems kind of simple and he cannot accurately gauge danger. That's why he's fucking dead. And I thought I might be wrong, but I wasn't. So Jack Nicholson shows up, and man, he hates Corley. He doesn't like Will, but he can tell that Will knows what he is. So he's all right. I mean, there's like that tension level, but it's two professionals that are aware of each other. Corley is just not gauging how lethal Jack Nicholson is.
How dangerous the situation he's in. Right.
And so Will keeps yelling at him like, just shut up. Don't fuck with this guy. And so they're going along, and then there's a point where they find the bearded man they referred to, which is weird that they even bring that guy up because he's in one quick scene. But I guess it is significant. So they see a guy who is laying in the desert, or up on the dirt somewhere. And so the woman, who I don't think we ever even get her name because Corley keeps asking her and she won't tell the name. And so I don't know if she's ever named. It doesn't really matter. Nobody has a name except for Will and Corley, honestly. But Jack Nicholson's character is named Billy Spear, I think is his name. So she goes off and she goes and talks to the guy and comes back, and Will's like, who is that? And she says, oh, he's a friend. And Will says, and you're just going to leave him here? And she says, well, his leg's broken. There's nothing we can do for him. I gave him some water. And they just leave him. And I'm like, okay. So they're going along. And then there's a point where the horse she's riding is now exhausted. It's basically, dead. And so now she doesn't have a horse. So she takes Corley's horse. And Corley is now riding with Will on his horse, right? But it's slowing them down. So she says, you have to leave him here. And he's like, I'm not leaving him. At which point Jack Nicholson's like, you're leaving him one way or another. Meaning he's going to kill him if they don't leave him behind. And so he's like, fine. So he gives Corley water and he says, I will come back for you. Just find some shade and I will come back for you. And the two of them ride off, and Nicholson's trailing and stops and says to Corley, he's like, hey, just an FYI, I'll come back and do you the same way I did Leland. He's like, and if you try to yell, I guarantee my bullet is faster than the sound of your voice. Meaning he killed the guy in the beginning of the movie. So, nice. But he wants Corley to know it. So he was the guy that, well, I don't know if he was the guy following Will or not. It was unclear whether he was following or the woman was. But the fact that he killed Leland makes me think it was supposed to be him, but unclear. So Corley is, he's laying there, and what does he see? Oh, and then he happens at one point to look over, and he sees a horse. And so he gets on the horse, and knowing that Nicholson is the one that killed the guy, he starts riding towards them. And so the three of them are, they're, I think they see the guy they're chasing. Or no, they don't. But they know they're close to where he's supposed to be. I mean, they don't even name what it is they're chasing, but the woman is acting like they're close to their end goal. And so now the horses are all dying because they've ridden them so hard that all the horses are dying. At which point, Corley shows up and rides at them and kind of turns away, and Will and Nicholson peel off to go after him. And as they come up to him, he draws his gun, and Will says, don't, and Nicholson kills him immediately. Oh, because he found, because when he found the bearded man, because he does come across the bearded guy, and he gives him some candy to go along with the water he's got, and the guy whispers something to him, but we don't know what it is. But has to do, obviously, with whatever's going on with them. So that's why he's more insistently riding towards him. And it's something to do with, well, I mean, I think he was going to kill Nicholson anyway because Nicholson shot the other guy. But this seems to have made it even worse. So Nicholson kills Corley, and Will like gives him this look like, okay, if there is ever a moment where you turn your back on me, you are fucking dead. So they keep going. He does take his gun. So he gets his gun, and they keep going, and now there's a point where they're all on foot because now all the horses are dead. And interestingly, one of the horses is just laying there suffering, and Will's like, why won't you shoot them? You know, like, put these animals out of their misery. And the two of them just don't listen. And the woman at this point seems like she's about to die, but she just keeps going towards these rocks because she said, I saw him. And so they're going along, and there's a point where Nicholson turns his back on him, and he immediately, like, blindsides him, and they start beating each other to death. And so he manages to get the drop on Nicholson and knock him out. And then you see him, the woman's in the background. She's going up into the rocks. She doesn't even care about the two of them anymore. She's going up in the rocks. And this is like the last 5 minutes of the movie. So I'm like, what the fuck is going to happen? Because I'm like, this is, I'm interested. I don't know what's going on, but I'm following it. And what is going to happen in this last 5 minutes? And then Will picks up this giant rock. And of course, what you think is that he's going to brain Nicholson to death. But instead, he smashes his gun hand to pulp and just drops the rock. Yeah! I'm like, that's fucking brutal. Like, he destroys his gun hand.
He's really dependent on the fact that Nicholson can't shoot lefty.
Well, yes, that would have been kind of the. I don't know enough about gunslinging or westerns in general to know that I would have just assumed that it would be tough to left-hand draw.
It would be tough if you're not if you can't. Yeah, most people have,
because he's not dual armed. He doesn't have two guns. Yeah. If he had two, I would assume that maybe that would have been the thing, is his left hand. Yeah. So he destroys his hand.
He smashes his hand.
Yes. And then he takes off after the woman. And Nicholson is kind of out for a little bit, but then you see him start to get up. But he's so far back that, and I think he may have taken his gun too. But it doesn't even matter because it's very clear the way they present it that Nicholson cannot shoot with his left hand, or at least not accurately. And with these types of guns, you know, you with a bad hand, you're probably not going to hit anything but a rock. So he's chasing the woman up. And now you see that there's a guy that she's chasing. There is a person that's climbing into these rocks. And so he catches up to her. And then it cuts into this really weird slow-mo thing, which I guess is the provocative or weird ending, whatever. And so you see it all slows down, and the woman draws her gun, and you see the guy turn around and draw his gun, and it's the brother, but it's his twin brother. So it's the same actor. Turns around and shoots at her and hits her. She shoots back and hits him, so you assume they're both dead. And you just see Will yell coin, like he yells at him. And then it just cuts back to Nicholson walking, holding his hand, and then it just says the end. And that's it. So I guess that's people have said that they don't know if that means that Gashade got hit, although I don't think so. There's no indication of that. But Coin and the woman clearly shot each other. So, of course, what happened was Coin ran down her husband and child. To me, this is not ambiguous. This seems pretty obvious. That the reason she's after Coin is because he must have run over her husband and child.
Yes.
But apparently, because it doesn't just spell it out for you, people are like, provocative ending. I'm like, this is maybe in the 60s for people who were used to spaghetti westerns or straightforward gunsmoke stuff.
Who's that guy who loves to do like westerns with like incest and God? What's his name?
Oh, Jodorowsky or Jodorowsky.
Yeah, Jodorowsky. Yeah.
Yes.
Like this seems fairly safe for Jodorowsky.
This feels like that he made the movie, but without all the weird shit.
Yeah, if the Jodorowsky ending would have been that like she like catches up with the guy, lures him into sex, has sex with him, and says, by the way, I'm really your sister. And then she calls God to kill the guy with lightning, which happens, and kills them both. Right. The Jodorowsky ending, yeah.
Interestingly, I did read after I watched the movie that the director or the writer, was he writer and director? Hold on, let me check this. Written by... Okay, so I don't know. I'm trying to see. There was something about... I think it was the director. No, it would have had to be the writer because the writer did the story. Somebody was modeling the JFK assassination as this movie, and watching it. No, it's I can see it. Not the whole thing. The whole thing, no. But the woman looks exactly like Jackie Onassis in terms of her overall look. You know, she resembles her. And the way it's shot at the end where they're leaning over is like where she's on the car, like reaching for his brain. Like I can see the visual of it. Like I get it. And the way the ending is shot, it's like slowed down, almost like a slowed down film of some, like I can see it.
Yeah.
But the rest of it feels like it's just there is something to this movie that is impossible to accurately convey.
It just sounds like a nutty Western.
Well, it's not even, there is this very good atmosphere that is.
You know what they probably didn't like is that classically in that time period, right? Good guys wore white, bad guys wore black.
Yep.
And you always knew who the hero was.
Rise off into the sunset after being the bad guy.
And who he was going to kick the shit out of, right?
Right.
This is John Wayne territory, right?
Yes.
And then you got a Western like this where you're like, okay, who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? I mean, that woman's a bitch, but you know what? If she's killing the murderer of her husband and child,
yes,
isn't she the good guy?
Right.
You know, is it?
Yeah.
You know, is Jack Nicholson's? You know, Jack Nicholson is a bad nut, but she hired him to do a job for her.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you've got a lot of ambiguous people.
Yeah, yes, and so that's why I'm saying for a modern viewer, I don't think there's anything strange about it.
What is that Western that is said to be the end of the Westerns? Is it the Wild Bunch?
I don't know if that might be. I know the Wild Bunch is a highly regarded movie.
There's a Western that's considered to be like the end of the classic Westerns.
Well, let's see. The Western to end all Westerns. Let's search for that.
I think it's the Wild Bunch. I think the Wild Bunch is considered the end of like the Westerns period. Because after that, you know, they said it was the end of the black hat, white hat Westerns.
Let's see. Well, that you know what, the Wild Bunch may have heralded the new version. That might be what you mean.
Yeah.
Because apparently it was done with a lot of quick editing. Here it is. Critics of the Wild Bunch note the theme of the end of the outlaw gunfighter era. So yeah, this sounds like this was the transition point from classic Western to a new type of Western or something, whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
So I think this movie's great.
Yeah, because the Westerns are a very clear period in American cinematic history, a lot like superhero movies.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so it's it's fascinating.
Yeah. And apparently they almost couldn't get this into theaters. So it never screened theatrically for a couple of years after it was made. Nobody wanted it.
Which is so funny, you know.
Well, because if it was such a departure, because this is 3 years before Wild Bunch, then
what is risque in the time period, you know?
I think you're right. It's the thing that when you get to the end, there isn't an ending in the classic Western sense.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you're left sitting there going, "Wait a minute, was she the good guy at the end of all this, despite her lunacy?"
Yes, and that's the other side of it, is that the audience is with Will as the character, and she and then Nicholson, they almost amplify how much he's being treated like shit for no reason. Like she is just openly hostile to him. And then Nicholson is that plus I'll just he says something about you look at me funny again, I will blow your face off. I think he literally says that. Or something like, he says something about blow the face off your head or something. Like, and he does draw on them a couple of times where you're like, okay, they're going to get killed. So, but then he is working for the person who was wronged. But Will is also not in the wrong. He didn't want any part of this shit. Is his brother's sin his? How? He wasn't there. He wasn't even in the town. So I think it is that what they're referring to is how this movie would have been seen at the time. Because to me, as soon as they said that that Coyne ran out, and when the woman showed up, I immediately was like, yeah, Coyne killed them, and she's trying to find him to kill him. This is not a mystery to me. There's nothing ambiguous about this ending to me. I mean, but for the time,
it's easy to see that. Yeah, it's easy to see that from 2023.
Well, also because Nicholson is alive at the end of the film. and so is Will. So
Yeah,
there's also the aspect of what happens.
Nicholson, who's technically kind of one of the bad guys, walks away alive.
Well, he's walking towards them at the end. So the idea is he going to try to kill Will for what he just did to his hand? You would think. Because if he's a hired assassin and he's no longer... I mean, he hits his hand so many times that I don't think at this time period they were going to be able to fix it correctly. Which essentially means he just doomed his profession. And if this guy was already a psycho, that's kind of, well, fuck it. I'm going to go down trying to kill you.
He's going to choke him to death with the other hand. Yeah.
Right. So, and that is where the end shot lingers on Nicholson's character walking towards the camera, towards where Will is. And it just comes up with the end and kind of fades to white.
Honestly, really, it's the ominous ending. It's the fact that you don't know who the hero is, and the people who are left behind are left with an angry psychopath.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's excellent, mostly because it's quick. It builds the tension really well, and it establishes this idea of, like, the characters are really good because there's only 4 of them, so it's smart. It deals with a short amount of characters. Corley is easy to understand because he's kind of the lovesick. Simpleton is the wrong word for it, but we'll call it that just for shorthand. And Nicholson doesn't show up until halfway through. So really what it is it's the whole thing between Will and the woman. And I did check. She has no name. So it is that back and forth where I guess at the time, if you didn't immediately jump to the idea that Will's brother had to be who she was after, then you would be hating her up until the point where you realized what was going on. And I guess it would then
and it's
reverse
also the
your
fact that they don't
expectations.
paint her as a sympathetic character.
No. At no point do they.
Yeah.
I mean, Corley, who she clearly can tell is lovesick. Like, there's a sequence that's almost, well, it is cruel. They're sitting there, and he's like, "Miss, can I call you by your name?" And she's like, "Well, what name do you want to call me?" And he's like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Well, think of a name." And he's like, "Well,
yeah,
the only name I
really." Go ahead.
So he goes, "Well, the only name I can think of is my mother's name, and it's, I don't know, Matilda or whatever." And she says, "Oh, Matilda, that's your mother's name." "Yes." Well, Corley, you cannot call me that." And then she just walks away from him. And it's like, okay, she's just fucking with this guy now.
Yeah, but now here's the thing, right? If you put this into complete context, she is traveling with the brothers of the person who murdered. Yeah,
I understand, but in the movie, if you don't jump to that from the beginning.
Yes.
Which at the time, if you were used to classic westerns, you
they
probably wouldn't jump to it.
That is the twist. The twist is that the people that you've been with all along are considered the bad guys, and she is really the hero who's been wronged.
Well, here's another thing. There's a point where she doubles over on her horse, and Corley's like, "You're sick. We have to stop." And she says, "No, let's keep going." There's a part of me that thinks, is that pregnancy? Is she pregnant?
Oh, that's that kind of, you don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is, but that would even more stack onto her hatred.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean is the movie, I think the movie's really good. It's a Western I would watch again because it does not, as they say, function as a classic Western, which is what makes it interesting to me. Is that the end, and I don't even think there's all that much
more importantly, it would be a badass samurai movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But this is a case where I would tell other people who are like me that don't generally watch Westerns.
Yeah, just check it out.
This one I think is worth seeing because it feels like a movie that would be made today as a subversion of the classic Western thing. Almost like an Unforgiven.
But they made it in the time of the Western.
But they made it dead middle of the 60s. Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody in it is excellent. I mean, Nicholson he's a good actor, so no surprise. And this is him at his physical prime. So he looks like he could crawl inside your nostrils and tear your brain out through your asshole before you sneezed. I mean, he's in, top shit. And his fucking Joker smile is, imagine him at 30 years old and lethal.
Yes.
So when he shows up and he's smiling right away, like, oh, fuck, you're all screwed now. It's one of those kind of things. So, I watched it on Criterion. I don't know if it's anywhere else, which is the only shame about it, but it may be on YouTube. It looks like it is on YouTube. It's
old enough.
Yeah, it's on there, and it's Jesus Christ. And the thumbnail on YouTube is Nicholson's death smile. So if you see that image right there, that's exactly what you don't want to see in a Western, is that guy looking at you. I mean, it's Jesus Christ. It's right there. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see if I can find a good picture of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the way they dress him, too. He's very Doc Holliday.
Wow, this is fascinating. Somebody 2 years ago replied to this. She's one of the more vile villains I've seen in films. I don't get why they insist on helping her at every 30-second interval of the movie, even after she repeatedly said she doesn't need them, and especially don't get why Will continued to go with her, help her after they left the other guy in the desert. Good film, but weird, and the story doesn't make sense. Yeah, Jesus, you know what? I guess if you go into this with one type of mindset.
Yeah. If you go in and you don't put together and you think that she's out just the villain. If you follow traditional Western rules and you go, "Oh, she's a bitch. Like, fuck her." Yeah, and that's why there's that really one that Appaloosa. Have you seen Appaloosa?
No, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Appaloosa is a really good Western. Now, it is, again, it's a subversive Western, right? Because essentially you've got Ed Harris and Viggo Mortensen, and they're this, like, these law-bringing pair, right?
Yeah.
And at first, it feels very traditional. They come to town. They, they're there to spread justice, and there's a robber baron type played by Jeremy Irons, and they pursue him. And there's a big shootout that nearly kills the two of them, but they catch Jeremy Irons and they put him in prison, right? And that would be, and then Ed Harris gets the girl, right? Now this would be where the movie would end, where Ed Harris would basically say, "I'm tired of wandering and I'm just going to stay in town with this woman," and that's the end of the movie, right? Except what's subversive is that Appaloosa keeps going, and now you've got the fact that Ed Harris is in town. And he's with this woman, and he's trying to kind of like, settle down. And Viggo Mortensen is getting a little restless because, and what's great about Viggo Mortensen in this movie is he's got that giant shotgun, which is almost like a character into its own.
Yeah.
And as the movie goes on, Jeremy Irons gets out of prison, and he's still kind of a robber baron type. So he starts to basically, rather than be a bad guy, he starts doing good things in the town, and people rapidly reaccept him in the town, and he's got a lot of money, and he's doing a lot of good things, and there's still kind of this darkness hanging over him, but everyone is very interested in Jeremy Irons and his money, right? And then you realize that Jeremy Irons is banging Ed Harris's wife.
Oh.
Right? And
Sure.
that while the sheriff is sitting there being all like, like heroic and high and mighty, Jeremy Irons is meanwhile just nailing his wife behind his back. And when Viggo Mortensen finds out, basically he's like, "You know what?" He goes, "Ed Harris is the sheriff." It's like, if he challenges him to a duel, he'll lose everything. So what Viggo Mortensen does is, without telling Ed Harris the truth, he basically takes Jeremy Irons out and challenges him to a duel, kills his ass, and basically says, to Ed Harris, "Don't come looking for me," and rolls out of town. And it's this massive subversion because you're basically seeing the aftermath, saying, "Wait a minute, so the who we thought was the hero is getting cuckolded by the villain, and to stop it, the hero's not his sidekick, but basically his partner has to become a criminal so that it never surfaces the fact that the wife was cheating on him." And it's like it totally takes this what starts out as a very traditional Western and turns it on you, and you're like, Jesus. Like, and it's and you're dealing with men who are emotionally limited already. So to watch Viggo Mortensen's character try to kind of put this all into perspective for himself, to try to figure out what's the right thing to do, And he's like, well, the right thing to do is to kill that guy and fucking leave town so that Ed Harris will never know that his wife was Stuppen the villain. Right? Like, and the thing is, I like that. I like when they take these, like, much like the ones Western you watch, they put these ideas inside of something which is already considered a kind of like, well, these are the rules of this genre, and saying, no, we're going to do something else in this genre to see what happens, you know? So you might like Appaloosa. It's actually a really well done flick. And more kind of in this genre, this idea of challenging the rules of a genre.
The YouTube comments alone are worth reading because they are.
Well,
50%,
they let you know what
I have
people
no
are...
idea what the fuck this movie's about, and the other half are, did you watch it and pay attention? But probably my favorite is, LOL, what the fuck, best Western I've ever seen. Oh, God.
Man, what is that one that Liam Neeson and Pierce Brosnan did? You ever see that one? Where Liam Neeson's hunting Pierce Brosnan.
I don't remember what it's called. I never saw it, but I know the movie.
And it just becomes like a weird acid Western. And then by the end, you're like, are they in hell? Like, they might already both be dead. And like, it's just,
This was described as one of the early acid Westerns, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
I did see one thing that referred to it that way. So.
Well, I'm glad that it was good. And I'm glad that Jack Nicholson got to be, Jokerish early on.
Yes, it's a shame that, as one person put it, Jack Nicklaus, meaning the golfer, because that's the name they spelled, sucked so much. Jack Nicklaus was a golfer. Jack Nicholson is an actor.
Too bad Jack Nicholson sucked so much.
Well, I agree that Jack Nicklaus probably would have been shitty in this movie, but he was a great golfer.
Well,
Jack Nicholson is very good in it.
But it's funny because you're kind of sitting there going, yeah, what would he have to have done to not suck? And I think that's the thing. Listen, Tombstone. Tombstone is every cowboy movie lover's like fulfillment of the cowboy movie dream. Yeah. Right? You've got all the badasses, you got the gunfights, the bad guys get it in the end, and that's like the one extreme, you know what I mean? Like, I know that personally one of my favorite Westerns is Open Range with Kevin Costner. Yeah, because you start out with basically essentially like an ex-killer and a broke-ass fucking like cattle, a cowboy essentially, and the two of them, they just want to be left alone and they just want to fucking like move their cattle. And this is like the end of that period of history where people are starting to buy up land, and they don't want any trouble. And then they get fucked with. And then when they get fucked with, these two men start to like, who've traveled with each other for years now, suddenly find out a lot of shit about each other that they didn't know before. And I like it because it's not a straightforward Western. There's a lot of nuance to the characters. And watching the Kevin Costner's character, like, who kind of fancies a woman, trying to figure out like how to interact with a woman when he hasn't had any interaction with women in like decades. And honestly, I think it's probably one of his best performances because he's this masterful like gunman, and yet he doesn't know how to like do the nice thing, like have etiquette. Like I like that kind of Western. The Western where you're dealing with kind of the savagery of masculinity coming into contact with like the civilizing nature of culture, right? I just hate it when it becomes a masculinity jerk fest, And like for me, like Tombstone, I said like Tombstone is like the culmination of all, like that the Western rules, and yet at the center of what I like about Tombstone is at the center of that movie is the friendship between what is a criminal and a lawman, which is, Doc Holliday, and you got, my God, I can't believe his name just slipped out of my mind. Jesus Christ, my brain says Kurt Russell.
Wyatt
I
Earp?
can't name Wyatt Earp. Jesus Christ, I don't know why that fell out of my head. I just kept going, Kurt Russell. You got Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday.
How could you not remember it? I'm a friend of yours, Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, I know.
Jesus, alone that would do it.
And the relationship is at the core of that movie. You know, like Doc Holliday stays with him to the end, and in the end does the villainous thing so that Wyatt Earp will live. And for me, that's why I love that movie, because the center of it is this very weird friendship that is stronger than anything else. You know, so it's but I guess that's me finding the weird things in movies that draw me to them. And honestly, I don't like a lot of like a lot of the John Wayne westerns. I never enjoyed. You know, I always kind of skewed more towards like the slightly odder westerns. I mean, listen, Quickly Down Under is probably one of my favorite western, and that takes place in Australia.
Well, that's where I think you would actually like this movie. I think you would get something out of it.
It's not an ambiguous ending. It's just what do you think's going to happen ending.
Right. And the other thing is, it's like I said, it's quick. So it moves. So, you know, the two westerns I named that I actually own are both very long, which is fine because one, I don't even consider a western, even though it is. And the other is just like the perfect western. So it doesn't matter. I don't even consider The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly to be a western, really. Because
honestly, it borders on like a Civil War movie.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's bigger than that. It's got a western,
and
western
like Outlaw Josie Wales. I love the Outlaw Josie Wales, but again, that's not a traditional western. Like he's ex-Confederate, he's given up, he's pissed off with everybody, you know, and in the end, you know, he is a killer, and he's trying to find, you know, and that end sequence where he goes to see the natives of the area and basically says to them, you know, we could kill each other. He's like, or we could figure something out. He's like, I came to fight you. He's like, but we don't need to fight. Like, I love that it ends in a conversation, not a bloodbath, you know? So yes, this seems like an interesting western.
It is an interesting western. So, and it's on YouTube, so you can go and other places, so you can go watch it for free. The Shooting 1966. So go seek it out. Or watch Star Trek Picard. That's also good. Or watch Top Gun Maverick, because that's also good.
Yeah, we'll talk again about that. We'll talk again about that.
Yeah. But on that note, we are now done. So have a nice weekend. Go watch something fun, and we'll talk to you next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.